so few mass killings at schools in other nations compared to the United States? Why do you think that is?
I don't think there's any one reason. I think it's got a lot. I mean, there's tons of different factors. Tons of different factors.
What about the possibility that it simply put killing with firearms is a lot easier? If you make folks, as you say, find another tool like a knife, a car, or a bomb, it's harder to do the job. It's not as easy to do it.
No, it's not. It's not as easy to do that as it is with a gun. But again, I don't think that's the only factor.
But could that be part of it?
We're putting into the heads of our children. We're teaching children that men can be women. We're teaching them that it's okay to unalive an unborn child. We're putting so much BS into their heads. We're poisoning their little minds. That's the start. That's the start. They don't do that in other societies. Not to mention the population thing.
They don't. They also don't give all their citizens guns in other societies for the most part either, though. Gen X.
You know, there's a gun in every household in Switzerland. There hasn't been a mass killing there. None that I can remember in my lifetime.
Yeah, but you get my point. In regards to first world nations on this planet, the overwhelming majority of first world countries do not have access to firearms like they do in the United States. You can find one or two, but most first world countries are not armed like we are here.
No, most are not.
And they don't have the gun, and they don't have people getting shot. You don't think that the fact that we have so many guns compared to our allies, you don't think that has anything to do with? I mean, because yeah, you're right. You can use a knife, you can use a car, you can use a bomb, but per capita, there's a lot more people getting killed in America than virtually any other first world country.
Yeah, there's a whole lot more obese people in America too. Should we outlaw forks? Should we take away forks? Should we close the door of every fast food restaurant in America because people just choose not to eat? Look, you cannot. It's personal responsibility first and foremost, and there's got to be other alternatives. Now, one alternative is arming teachers. That's an alternative I've heard. But me personally, I like that option.
You really think that teachers already underpaid? You want to put a gun in their hand? I mean, there's a lot of teachers you see on YouTube getting their ass beat by students. I mean, would you be okay if a teacher had to execute a student in self-defense? I mean, that's because we talk about mass shootings, but in reality, this is still fairly rare. Over 99.9% of schools in America will never have a mass shooting. But teachers getting in fights and badass kids is a reality in a lot of schools. You want teachers to be dealing with bad kids while armed?
Of course, I would never want a teacher to harm a child or a student. But you know what? If their life was in danger and they protected themselves lawfully, that'd give the rest of them little bastards something to think about for the next time they want to do it.
Well, let me give it to you. You crazy. I knew I was gonna be scared to ask you this shit. But let me ask it to you this way: if you admit we have a problem with mental illness in this country, you'd also have to agree that teachers can be mentally ill too, right?
Yes, I would. I would agree, and I think that is a risk because you run that same risk with a police officer or military, people that we arm every single day. So yes, there's risk either way. But there's also ways to negate that risk: proper training, background checks, evaluations,
how much
mental health evaluations.
You want to keep in mind, cops get tons of training and they fail. You want to give this type of duty to a teacher? You're gonna be sitting here out for firearms training?
I didn't say without training. I believe that if you're going to take that option to arm teachers, they should be trained. They should have a minimum of 6 months of training and evaluation.
Are they gonna get paid more?
I would say that's probably not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing.
we find $60 billion to send to these fucking yo-yos over in Ukraine. So what's this fucking buy his wife a new Lamborghini? We can't find some of that money to pay our teachers more? Come on, to protect our children? Yeah, absolutely pay them more.
But you know, teachers have an affection towards children. So if there is a child that has brought a firearm to school or maybe even used it on a student, you would understand that with the affection that teachers have towards children, they might be less likely to pull the trigger and try to negotiate. The teachers are going to have a hard time taking the life of somebody they've been teaching and knowing since the person was a little kid. You really think a teacher would be the best for this job?
All right, let me put it to you this way, Tim. If you're a kid and you're reaching into your backpack with a gun, and I'm a teacher with a ruler trying to negotiate with you, you're probably going to pull that gun out. If you're that same kid putting your hand in that backpack to pull out that gun, and I'm a teacher who loves you and has an affinity towards you, pointing a 44 straight at your chest, we can negotiate. And I bet you won't pull that gun out of your backpack. Yes, arm them.
Oh my God, arming.
You made a good point, man.
No, I don't think I made a good point at all. The way you're presenting it. So when you take into consideration let's take Uvalde in Texas or Parkland, Florida. Both of those examples where armed officers were at the school and stood down in cowardice to some degree. They were scared to go in both cases, Uvalde and Parkland, Florida. If we arm a teacher and there is a event at the school and the teacher gets scared, because at the end of the day, a lot of these folks are far more heavily armed. You're not going to want to get a teacher a bulletproof vest, a long rifle, and several magazines. That's what a lot of these assailants are showing up with. So if the more heavily armed assailant shows up and the teacher looks down at her Glock or his or her Glock or their pistol and say, I'm not going out in the hallway engaging in a suicide mission. As a parent, if your child is lost in that event and you knew the teacher was armed, but hid out because the teacher themselves didn't want to die, what are you going to want to happen to the teacher?
She's not supposed to go out and confront the perp. That's not the reason to arm them, Tim. You're going way out in the left field with this, with the most extreme scenario.
So what is the purpose?
She's supposed to do, hold on, well, let me finish. What she's supposed to do, what a teacher is supposed to do, is protect her children. Get her children, they do drills on this all the time, into a secure part of the classroom, and then stand there and take a beat on that door. If they come through the door blazing, light them up.
So,
they ain't got no business.
Okay, I don't. Unfortunately, they dropped my last caller. I don't block, ban, or censor, but obviously the nature of what we're talking about. I don't know how we can really discuss this topic without using TikTok is really bad. YouTube doesn't censor like this. And Gen X, you're always welcome back on the program. I don't know why I do know why they flagged you, but sorry for that happening there. But I mean, obviously we're talking about people getting shot. So this happened. This is real life, though. Why would they censor a discussion on what just happened and folks honestly talking about ways of potentially solving it? We'll continue the topic. I do want to get into the secondary topic as well, but I do want to hear your opinion on what we're discussing. By the way, tap the screen, get the likes up to about 20,000. 400 plus of you in here. Smash that like button on YouTube. You know how the program works. We don't block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. You don't have to agree with the host. You don't have to agree with anybody in the comments. This is free speech. We go left of Bernie Sanders from having dinner with QAnon. So feel free to smash that, tap the screen on TikTok. Get the likes up to about 15,000. Same on YouTube. Yeah, Ed. Appreciate the hat and mustache. Thank you. Get the likes up to about 20 on YouTube. Now this, before I continue with the second topic, because this second one is a doozy. It is a political topic. DJ Julio, thank you. Thank you for the support as always. Arming teachers. Before we get into the secondary topic, because it is a doozy in my opinion, it's an actual quote coming from Trump, but this is, AC says, don't arm teachers, that's stupid. the liberal side of me, I gotta agree. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it because, as I was giving the example with my last caller, now he suggested arming teachers is the purpose of a teacher being armed is not to go out and engage with the assailant. It's to cower in the classroom and protect the children in that classroom. Okay, so what happens if a teacher in another classroom has been taken out? Do the teacher in that classroom just listen to the slaughter? Also, what happens if the teacher in the classroom with the children also cowers? People don't like to get involved in gunfights. What I'm asking simple is this. Is there any chance at all that if the teacher doesn't act in a superior method of bravado, that she or he may find themselves having to answer to a bunch of angry parents? Make no mistake about it, the parents of Uvalde and Parkland are really pissed off at the cops cowering and not protecting their children. As a teacher, do you really want that responsibility? You went to school, got your educational degree. You're just trying to teach third grade. You don't want to be held accountable for how you act in a gunfight. You would have joined the military if you wanted to do that. So the idea of arming teachers, I have two pushbacks. One, would there be enough teachers that wanted to carry a firearm in schools? Everybody ain't meant to take a life, even if they are armed. There are plenty of folks who have been armed, found themselves in a life or death situation and was unable to pull the trigger. Everybody's not meant to take a life. So that would be the first thing is, would you be able to find enough teachers willing to pack heat to do this? And then the secondary issue is, how confident would you feel at a school, having your child go to a school full of armed personnel? We've already seen plenty of stories of armed personnel in our society. Good guys with guns. Whether we're talking about the cops, whether we're talking about military former soldiers with PTSD, good guys with guns go bad all the time. And now you may be potentially sending your kid to a school loaded with alleged good guys with guns. Would you feel confident sending your kid to a school where all of the staff were armed? You feel confident none could go wrong? I mean, teachers have affairs and fights with each other, with students, bad students. Would you feel confident with your child in that environment? I just want to ask you that. And by the way, what happens if you take a shot? This is hypothetical. I'm admitting I'm stretching, but I want to see what your opinion is. What happens if a teacher is trying to defend the students, takes a shot at the assailant and hits another student? You find out your child or your cousin or your grandchild or someone was lost due to friendly fire. You're quick to forgive that teacher? All of this can happen. These are all scenarios that can really happen in an environment like this. Because remember, the goal is to not limit the amount of guns in society, to not infringe on the Second Amendment. What we are literally doing is trying to solve every gun problem with more guns. Every time someone gets shot, the solution is, how can we put more guns in more people's hands to stop that? We're using guns to solve every gun issue there is. Are we getting out of control with it? Are we going in the wrong direction? That's what we're going to. And I see some in the comments, Holiday 1360 says it's not working. Some might argue that. So going back straight to the box, real quick in the comment section, 100% yes, multiple of my teachers carried, and my principal had multiple students' guns in his office every day. Here's the issue. And Jeremy Krause, I understand your comment. Here's the issue, though. As I stated earlier in the program, 99.9% of schools will never have a mass casualty event like this. It sounds great to have a school full of armed personnel until it's not. You went to a school where everybody was armed. Okay, great. You didn't have any issues, anything like that. It's great until it's not. That's all I'm saying. Likely the school you went to didn't have any problems. You didn't have a teacher get pissed off with maybe the counselor because she was sleeping with the lunch lady who the teacher was dating. All of that happens in schools. All of that stuff happens. People are not perfect. Going back to the box, we'll keep it moving with the one and only DJ Julio. And before we get into this topic, DJ Julio's a friend of the program. He's MAGA. DJ, I want to ask you one question before we get into this topic.
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
That's 5. There you are.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I want to ask you one question before we get into this school topic. This one is kind of humorous, in my opinion. But I want to read a quote to you and ask you, is this valid? You ready?
I am.
Okay. The transgender thing is incredible. Think of it. Your kid goes to school and comes home a few days later with an operation. The school decides what's going to happen with your child. And you know, many of these childs 15 years later say, what the hell happened? Who did this to me? This is a quote from former President Trump. Are children going to...
He was on Ladies of Liberty for that, wasn't he?
Yes, Moms for Liberty, yes.
Yeah, Moms for Liberty,
Yeah.
I think that's a valid statement. That would be freaking horrific.
So you do believe that children are going to school and they come home a few days later after having a sex change without any parental consent?
Some of the schools are teaching them, yeah. I want to say, I was like, whoa, ballsy. I was just listening to it before I got onto your thing, actually about halfway through it. And that comment came straight across. And what that statement boils down to is they were talking about the Olympics and the guy that was transitioned to be...
That's in France. That's in France.
Listen, he's talking about a certain situation. He said, could you imagine it?
I don't see the word imagine in this quote anywhere.
Well, then you should probably get onto that and listen to it for yourself. Did you listen to
I
it?
I actually wrote this down while I was listening to it because I can't play it back for you in my car. This is the actual quote.
Literally 1:30 I was listening to this thing. I've been on your live for now. Well, whenever I sent that Elvis thing, I got on and I was on for like 2 minutes. I had just ended it because I saw a notification that you were on.
Okay.
And that's exactly where he was at. He was talking to the lady. He was talking about what had happened in France, and he goes, "Can you imagine it?"
Is that happening in France, where a French child goes to school without any parental consent? The child stays away from the parent for what did he say, for a few days later. So the parent their kid just don't come home for a few days. And when they come home, they're a different gender. Is that even happening in France?
Well, yeah, I'm sure it is. I mean, there's people in college getting gender reassignment surgeries.
College, you're in that though.
Still, but could you imagine your kid coming home?
He didn't say college. Wait. Gen X, I mean not Gen X.
He didn't say elementary.
He didn't say
elementary either.
He said child.
Yeah, I have children. I have a 27-year-old child.
So you think when he said this, he was referring to 27-year-olds?
So that's why I say go back and listen to the interview, because he was talking about the boxing and they were talking about your Olympic child going over there fighting. They were talking
hold on.
Olympic.
Listen to the end of this. The school decides what's going to happen with your child, and you know many of these childs 15 years later say, what the hell happened? Who did this to me? So the child goes in at 27, and they're wondering what happened at 42?
So then I see what you're saying with your statement. Yeah, no, I agree with the statement 100%. I couldn't imagine my daughter being leaned to be a boy in school. And yes, from interviews that I've seen online, that has happened where the schools are trying to decide for the parents what gender their child is based on.
Okay, but if you're talking about kids in college or 27, with the example you use, the parents don't have shit to say about it anyway. It's a full-grown adult. Why is he even mentioning the parents?
But Democratic boarding schools, liberal boarding schools, those kids are there they live at that school.
You said 27, Julio.
No, I didn't say it. I didn't say an age. I said I have a daughter that's 27 years
Right.
old. I couldn't imagine.
Wait, let me ask you this: is he talking about adults or minors?
I'm sure he's talking about kids in general.
No,
But the statement that you're reading is definitely he's talking about minors because it would make no sense.
right. And he's not talking about France. Nowhere in his statement did he say anything about somewhere international. So he's talking.
He sure as hell did. He was talking about the whole premise of your quote that you wrote down comes from the conversation they were having about the freaking transgender boxer, Tim. I mean, the quote that you're talking about right now is in a matter of a 10-minute conversation that they're having about gender. They're talking about the Olympics. They're talking about that Olympic boxer that took a left hook and then took a right hook and was like, nope, I'm done, when she was fighting that dude that decided he was a girl.
Yeah, but
so that he could win the Olympics.
Hold on, let me respond to a comment real quick, because Cali Conservative on YouTube says I'm out, dumb conversation. If he's talking about passing laws because of what's happening internationally, is not a dumb conversation. He's actually talking about acting because of it. But so you're saying he's talking about France. Is there any chance at all of this happening in America?
If it continues down the road we're on, yes.
Down what road? Who's talking about letting a kid get an operation with no parental consent?
The same people talking about early abortions. Late abortions.
I lean left on a lot of issues. I have not seen this circulating on any social media. I haven't seen Fox News pointing to sources. I haven't seen this from anywhere.
No, there's nothing out there right now for media. There's nothing based on these two candidates except for coming from the Trump camp.
So then I have to ask, if the left is in favor of letting a child decide that they want a sex change operation with no parental consent, and is the school going to pay for it? Is that what you're saying, that the school all of a sudden is paying for sex?
I have no idea what you guys are going to do. I have zero idea. I'm just hoping that it doesn't end up there.
Is it possible that maybe there's a remote chance that he's just making this up?
No, he's talking hypothetical. Again, listen to the whole damn thing and don't take just a piece of it. He says, imagine.
No, he said the transgender thing is incredible.
Okay. You're arguing over what you wrote down and what I just got done listening to, Tim.
Okay.
I mean, literally just got done listening to it before I came on your site.
Well, let's even go with your word, imagine. Why are you imagining this? There's no real politicians in America that are ever going to suggest this. Even from a hypothetical standpoint, what realistic chance does this ever have in the remaining years of our life of coming true? We won't even pay to forgive college tuition or give people universal health care. We won't even give hardworking Americans a minimum wage increase. But we're going to pay for a kid to change their gender? You believe there's a real chance of this ever happening?
Unfortunately, I do believe there's a real possibility of it. I don't. From the things that I've read about Colorado, the things that I've read about California, the things that I've read about them allowing thinking kids at 13 have a knowing mind that says that they're a male. And that they're going to go ahead and get them started on the hormones so that they can get gender reassignment when they reach the age of 16. All of that is horrible, Tim.
Yeah, but is there any...
No buts about it. Anything that you say after but doesn't matter.
No, ain't no but. Is there any example of this really happening anywhere in America? Even one case. 350 plus million people. Is there even one case of something like this happening?
I believe there is, and I challenge you to go to find it, and we'll talk about that some more tomorrow.
I actually tried, just because I knew my guests would push back. I can't find one single case of this. This is very similar to him stating that after a woman gives birth, they put the baby aside and her and the doctor decide whether they're going to let it live or not. I can't find one case of that.
Well, I imagine not. That's pretty horrible shit.
Then why is he saying it?
Because it's horrible shit. If it's happening, it's horrible.
So he's just saying things that are horrible, that are not realistically taking place anywhere.
I think he's saying things that our media isn't letting out of the house, And eventually, when he gets back in, come November 5th, as we all know he's gonna, Kamala, God bless her, doesn't have a chance. Doesn't. I don't even know if he dropped
You think, wait, you said Kamala Harris doesn't have a chance?
I think she has zero chance.
Even Trump is disagreeing with you on that. Trump may win. It's not guaranteed that Kamala Harris is going to win, but even Trump thinks she has a chance. I don't know where you get that from.
Okay, because you have a chance, just because you're running doesn't mean you have a chance to win.
Okay, no. Kennedy didn't have a chance. Kamala Harris, there's probably damn near 24 states. At least, probably over 24 states that the Trump campaign are not even going to go to because they know Kamala Harris are going to win those states. Nobody was doing that for Kennedy. She does have a chance.
I don't know.
The entire portion of this country that borders the Pacific Ocean and damn near everything that borders the Atlantic Ocean is going to vote for Kamala Harris, probably with the exception of the Carolinas. Everything in Florida, everything else is likely to vote for Kamala Harris. I don't get what you mean she don't have a chance.
What? Not by the polls that I've seen, and even if she does win, they're only picking her because they're Democrat states. That's it. They're not voting on her because she's the best president.
I agree with that.
They're not voting that she's the best person for the office. I mean, so again, I say she doesn't have a chance.
Okay, I think you may find yourself saying so. And by the way, real quick before I move it on, because you were an interesting guest, because you obviously you're MAGA, but Trump just admitted. I'm watching ABC News yesterday evening, came home from work. Trump is on television admitting that he was told if he got the same amount of votes in 2020 as he got in 2016, he would win. But it did not work. Hold on, it did not work out that way. And his quote was, "I lost by a whisker." He is now admitting he lost the 2020 election.
Yeah, that was also on that same interview, Moms for Liberty.
And
I'm proud of him.
Okay,
I'm proud of him for saying what he said.
Does he owe President Biden an apology for saying the man stole the election from him?
No, because the whisker that we lost by was the whisker they cheated to give.
So in other words, Biden didn't win. The Democrats cheated.
You said it. You're right. Absolutely, you're right.
So did he lose or did he lose?
Well, of course, he's not in the office. Obviously, he lost.
That don't mean just because he said he lost by a whisker. He didn't say Biden cheated anymore.
Well, no, because he knows that's damnable words nowadays.
So he went on TV to protect his image and not say damnable words and just lied.
No, he said the truth. He lost by a whisker. The whisker was just stolen. We know that.
All right. Will any evidence ever come out of that?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think you're still out in space, but I'm going to leave you at
I might be out in space. I was actually reading some of these comments here. What were we talking about? You asked a question, guns in school. We stayed on that topic for the whole time.
Yeah, I'm nervous to go back to it. And real quick, Gen X got dropped, and I see Mr. Splackaville says, Julio is too damn smart to be stuck on stupid. You're too gullible with these topics, suggesting that maybe you're deliberately being ignorant today?
I mean, I like to argue.
Okay. So you admit some of the shit you're saying.
I do think without a doubt, Trump is going to win. Without a doubt, Kamala doesn't have a chance. I do think, I do stand by how I feel about 2020. I stand by how I feel about 16.
Do you stand by it? Do you stand by what you said about children are going to school with a boy and coming home a girl 3 days later?
I go by the statement stating that, yes, in that interview, he said, imagine your kid going home to school or coming home from school. A different gender. Yeah, I mean, I cited your exact interview because I literally just watched this thing. Like, you don't
think that? So let me make sure I get this clear, Julio. You don't think that sounds ridiculous at all?
No.
Imagining your kid going to school for 3 days. I mean, who sends their kid to school and they keep the damn kid for several days without parental consent? Why do you have to imagine that? You believe that will happen one day in America where you send your kid to school and they keep your kid?
not keeping the kid without parental consent. They're pushing them the gender way they want them without parental consent.
He didn't say anything about parental consent.
He sure did. You just said it. And he said it in the thing. Without consent. So they come back. Without consent, they come back a different gender, just to summarize.
But your kid is gone for 3 days. That alone is a crime, even if they don't have an operation. You say you're going to imagine a time in America where you send your kid to school and they're gone for 3 days and you don't know where the hell they at?
That's not what he said either. That's not how he said it.
Okay, the transgender thing is incredible. Think of it. Your kid goes to school and comes home a few days later with an operation. What am I missing?
Well, maybe they came home on vacation. I'm telling you, in my opinion, the way that I took that, I took private school. I understood the kids were already gone from the school, gone at school for days.
They come home with a vacation, Julio. Jesus.
Let me just say this. If in fact he was referencing the kids getting kidnapped by the school, that's retarded.
Nobody's sending Julio. Nobody's sending their kid to school, and the kid comes home a few days later without. Obviously the only way this is going to happen is if the parents give parental consent, and he says nothing. He says the school decides what's going to happen with your child. So the school keeps your kid for a few days, and they get to decide whether your child gets an operation on their gender. Why do we have to imagine this? This is never going to happen.
Then we don't have to worry about it.
Then why the hell is he saying it?
Because it's how he feels. He feels like it needs to be said.
Is this in your opinion?
I've had conversations when they were first talking about changing the consent age in California, changing that ability to choose what gender you are to 13.
Is there any possibility at all that this might just be, in your opinion, even a little bit homophobic? Just a little bit?
No. I mean, homophobic is way different than saying there's only two genders.
What about transphobic?
How do you transition a gender? There's only two.
Okay, so in other words, transgender people don't exist, is what you're saying.
They're created, yeah, I suppose.
All right, Julio, I gotta move it on.
I don't know. But I do want to say, I back the teachers in the schools with guns. I really back them. I think that if they're trained correctly, it'll be a great thing. It sucks to hear. I only seen a portion of it because I was watching that thing and it came across my thing. Something about a mass event that happened. My heart goes out to the families. My heart goes out to all you liberals. I mean, let's be real about this. We need to vote somebody that's going to be about the books when they get in the office, not about.
I want somebody that's going to be about policies and getting America great without having us imagine bullshit that has no likelihood of ever happening. I got to move it on, though. Last word, you.
We can't get there without making the checks and balances in our national debt correct, and we can't do that without a businessman.
Then focus on that, not on these fictional scenarios with no chance of happening. Julio, appreciate it.
Take care.
All right. Moving on with the program. By the way, folks, tap the screen. Get the likes on up to about 30,000. We can certainly make that happen. TikTok, or better yet, YouTube, as always. Smash that like button. This is uncensored programming. You're not going to always like what you hear. That's how it works. It is about free speech. We don't block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. You don't have to agree with anybody in the comment section. You damn sure don't have to agree with the host. That's how free speech works. Gen X, appreciate the super chat, says, I got $5 that says today's, oh my God. Jesus, Jen, that today's shooter, I'm trying to see how I can say this without getting banned. It's a super chat, so I always read the super chats no matter what, but I'm trying not to get the whole damn program taken down. Gen X says he got $5 that says today's shooter is a part of the transgender community. Let's leave it at that, as opposed to that. He didn't say transgender, though. He TRANNY. Obviously, you're no fan of that community. I'm going to leave it at that. Are you kidding? I love it. Some serious mental illness out there. God bless us all. Yeah, there is a lot, Zoka man, and I agree that teachers can be mentally ill as well. Man, giving teachers firearms. Really? Let me go back to the box. There's a lot of folks that agree with that, though. I'm scared. DenCal, the one and only good evening DenCal, armed teachers, elementary school, middle school, high school, armed teaching personnel. What say you, DenCal?
Before we get into that, man, I just want to say.
I already know where you're going. I already know.
If you were to take an IQ test before and after DJ Julio, I guarantee you got dumber.
I ain't gonna say shit. I already knew where you were going with that. I'm like, let me get back to gun. You know it's crazy when you feel
brain cells listening to him twist himself to say everything that Trump says or does is right, and he agrees no matter what.
You know it's safer when I thought it would be better to get back to talking about guns. I knew where you were going with that. I'm like, shit, let's get back to the guns. Oh my
God. Okay, back to the topic.
Okay.
Now I know a few teachers, and I used to be an instructor in the military myself.
Okay.
When you apply and you get those jobs, none of the people I know that are teachers or instructors signed up to be guards. They didn't sign up to have to defend their lives or the students' lives that they vowed to teach. So just by saying, if we just go ahead and train them all, then they'll be good. No, that's not how human beings work. The majority of the people who choose a life of instructing and teach it do it because they have a love for teaching.
You raised a good point, because just like with teaching and the low pay and the stress that teachers deal with, it's a profession that you actually have to want to do. Teachers do it because they want to make a difference. You're correct. Civil service, like police officers and fire workers, and the military. You do it because you want to make a difference. It has to be done organically. You can't try to mix and match where you're taking a teacher and trying to also turn him or her into, partially some type of security apparatus. I can see what you're saying, where that could really go wrong.
Yeah, I used to be maintenance. I used to be maintenance in a hospital, and they used to try to call us sometimes when they had security issues. And it's not that it's not that I'm scared or anything, but you hired me to do maintenance. You can't then call me when you have these people, trying to get prescriptions and stuff, and they seeking throughout. You can't call me for that stuff. That's not what I'm here for. So you can't ask a teacher to somehow now become a
hero, a fucking hero.
Right. And then another thing about that is, just because a person knows how to aim and shoot does not mean that they are capable of taking another human life.
Yeah.
People, you that's not something that you could teach somebody, on a course or, at a range. So just thinking, because I teach these people, that when somebody comes down the hall with a fully auto lock and doing their thing, that they're going to step up and run out of the, that's not how it happens.
Yeah, I always think of the scene. I always use the movie Saving Private Ryan, because I think most of my audience has seen that at least once, where there's the guy who has a belt-fed 50, and he actually lets the German guy pass him by in the stairwell and kill his friend because he just isn't cut out to take a life. I mean, everybody is not, just because you hand people guns. This is why I say, because they always, what beats a bad guy with a gun? A good guy with a gun. Every good guy is not capable of taking a life.
What happened with which one of those situations was it where the guy, the police officer, was outside and he never went into the school? You remember that? It was
Parkland, Florida.
Yes. He actually had he was outside
hiding behind one of the pillars of the school, covering for his own safety. I mean, because at the end of the day, a lot of these assailants go into schools and they're far more armed than the folks we're going to use to be first responders. So if the police show up to your house, man with a gun call, and you're more heavily armed than them, they don't run into your crib. They take cover and call for more powerful weapons. So the teachers are going to be in that situation a lot of times.
And they're regular people who don't have a violent bone in their body. Yeah. They're not. And another thing, what happens when children in specific schools know that there are weapons there? Now, we already see videos of these students fighting teachers and being disrespectful. What happens if they find out there's a safe somewhere, or they find out that the teacher has a key to a lockbox somewhere? You think they can't strong arm that teacher?
Well, the thing is, you kind of wonder, I mean, can you really even be effective if the thing is locked up? So I guess, because the best way to keep security is to have the firearm on your person, and that leaves you exposed to all the shit you're talking about. But if it's locked up in some kind of box or something like that, I mean, I don't know what kind of security that really is. I mean, if you want to provide security, you need to have that weapon at the ready on you.
Especially if the person, the assailant, knows where it's at. When they first come in, that's the first place they going, if they know where it is. And if you're around it, that's like when
and there is a very high likelihood of that happening, because most of the children that are doing this are attendees of the same damn school. So they're going to know the hiding places, the procedures. They know all of that because they went to the school. So they've been taught where you're going to hide at, what you're going to do, and everything.
Exactly. The same thing people do when they go to rob a bank. They know that there's firearms in the bank. Yeah. What do? The first place they go is to the firearm. They go to neutralize the guard.
Yeah.
So if the teachers are not a guard, they become the first targets now.
So then I have to ask the obvious question. I see in the comments, Bandito says, I support 2A, but don't be stupid, which is a legitimate point. But why do you think there are so many Second Amendment supporters? That's the first thing they yell is to give a gun to a teacher. Why do you think there's so many people calling for this?
I don't know. I think it's a I don't know. I think it's really deep down. It's a personal a thing with these firearms, because the reality of it is firearms put people on an equal par. Even when they're weak, you now become on a standing level.
Well, that's assuming they all got the same firearm, though.
Yeah. I mean, look, somebody that has an AR can get taken out by somebody who's got a 22.
Yeah, but the person with the 22 don't really want to get in that fight. I mean, yeah, you might get lucky and win, but that ain't a fair fight.
Right, and the strategy of the person with the 22 is, I'm gonna get close to him and I'm gonna do him before he even knows it's a fight.
And that's a hell of a challenge for somebody with an AR.
And so it all becomes psychological to think that the more weapons we put out in society, the less crime will be. When we are the test tube to say it doesn't work. We actually see this experiment happening where there's more weapons than people, and that hasn't stopped the crime. The crime is created by different things in society. It's not because we have more or less weapons.
But while you're saying that, here's an interesting comment that came in. I'll let you take it wherever you want to take it. But Eric B, shout out to Rakim, but Eric B says, if the whole country had open carry, a lot less people would be fucking around and finding out. A lot less people would be being harmed. If everybody you saw carried a firearm like you see folks carrying smartphones, do you think America would be a safer country?
Well, I got two examples. For one, you can use the Wild Wild West where everybody carried pew-pews. Yeah. And guess what happened?
It was wild. It was wild.
They was on top of buildings. What did they have to do? They had to check their weapons at the gate of these towns because they already knew that it's not a good idea to have everybody to just have all of these weapons.
Yeah.
Another example I'll give you is the country of Israel. Now, I've been there a couple of times, and they have open carry. They can carry all day, every day, because they always find themselves in a fight against,
Yeah, right.
So, but that doesn't stop crime from happening in their society. So, like, we can all act like, look, if we just went on ahead and did it, that we might have a different outcome. But we're in this test tube right now. We're in this experiment where people have weapons. They're giving them away in Florida. You don't have to have an open carry. You don't have to have a concealed carry. You don't have to register. It's like that in Georgia. Everybody got them. Is crime going down in those areas? No.
And they bring up Chicago, suggesting where, nobody can, by the way, you can legally carry a gun in Chicago. So folks who believe the right-wing talking points, years ago, someone took it to the Supreme Court. You can legally have a gun in Chicago. So that's not even true. But I don't know any of the cities in the South, the Memphis, the St. Louis, the Jacksonvilles, that are safer because the citizens have easy access to guns than any of the liberal cities. As you're right. Allowing citizens to have guns with no issue is not bringing down crime. I don't see.
It makes it worse, because now you got the average Joe that's not brave enough to bust a grape. If something happens, now he's carrying, his Smith and Wesson, and now a traffic incident is now, this guy is brave. It is not stopping crime. It's increasing it.
Yeah, the amount of violent road rage incidents you see, that shit is usually in pro-gun states. I mean, folks, as you rightfully point out, people get into a conflict and they already have a temper or an ego to defend. And now you've just allowed them to carry, so they bring a gun to what normally would have been a fist fight.
Right, and look, I know, because when I'm born and raised in Detroit, in the 70s and 80s and 90s, some of the worst neighborhoods to ever, in the whole country. So the murdered capital and all of that stuff. I know the first time I was able to, tote my own thing, of course I knew it changed me as a person, as a human being. So I know that just saying, look, we just gonna give everybody weapons and then we're gonna depend on the good people to stop the bad people is just not a good idea.
No, because sometimes a gun can turn a good person into a bad person. Some people feel empowered when you give them access to a firearm. I mean, there's some cops out there that have all the training you would want a person to have, and even they are not always mature enough to handle, to have lethal force on them. I mean, there's a lot of cops out there doing shit they wouldn't do. And it ain't always about the criminal element versus good guy versus bad guy. I often bring up both George Zimmerman, who took the life of Trayvon Martin. It was ruled in self-defense. We don't have to debate it, but George Zimmerman, who took the life of Trayvon Martin, and Kyle Rittenhouse, who also committed an act of self-defense. Both of those individuals acted in a manner with a firearm that they likely would never have done if they didn't have a gun. Guns give folks the empowerment effect. I'm not saying that these folks may not have had to defend their lives. They would have never put themselves in that situation if they didn't have a gun.
What 17, whatever Rittenhouse was, what teenager that young decides with a couple friends, hey, let's go down to this protest or riot and let's save these businesses, no, that's not. Put that firearm in his hand, and now he's Captain Avenger. And then he got in the middle of that situation. He didn't know what to do, and he ended up unaliving some people. Just like Zimmerman. He put himself in this situation where he was chasing somebody he shouldn't have never been chasing. And the person, he either caught up to the person or the person fell corner and retaliated against him. Now he put himself in a position where he has to, to hurt this, hurt this other person. And they walk away, they walk away from it from the law standpoint as some type of heroes.
Yeah, I don't know how. I got to move it on before I let you go. I will say that I don't know how you can ever claim stand your ground when it's an incident that you are the one that initiated. I mean, you're chasing some dude off into the middle of the night while armed, while you have this mindset that you think he is a thief. That's what happened with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. He's on 911 saying these people never get caught or they always get away with. So you don't already prejudge this person. You grab a gun and chase them off into the night. Turns out this person weren't committing any crime at all, and somehow you're able to claim I had to stand my ground. I don't know how that's allowed. Shouldn't even be allowed. But I got to move it on, then, Cal.
Hey, one quick thing. I just wanted to say that I was looking at one of the posts, and it's from Gordon777, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. He said, getting rid of poverty is the way to reduce crime.
Well said. 100% agree. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Yep.
And I'll add on to that, too. I'm a big fan of diversity, but lack of diversity reduces crime as well. And what I mean by that is, because you often hear what Democrat cities where all the crime is and Republican cities are not like that. Yeah, because of lack of diversity. If you don't have diversity, everybody is kind of on the same page. Most right-wing towns, they're all straight, they're all Christian, you know, they're all white. I mean, there's not a lot to clash on. So lack of diversity does help reduce conflicts. I'm not a fan of reducing diversity. I do believe we should have a diverse country, but lack of diversity does reduce crime, in my opinion. And, of course, lack of population. If ain't nobody here, ain't nobody to kill. You look at Democrat cities and they blame all the crime. Well, yeah, that's where all the damn people are. That's where more poverty. Well, I don't want. There's a lot of poverty in right-wing areas, too, but there's just a lot more issues to conflict on in liberal cities than are in right-wing areas. So that does cause some of that. Looking in the comments, yeah, okay. So prevent crime by reducing poverty, then blue-collar crimes don't exist. Blue-collar crimes are generally purse snatchings, carjackings, robberies, liquor store. If people ain't poor, they are less likely to do that. A lot of the folks committing, as you say, blue-collar crimes don't have a lot to lose. If you got a decent job, a decent house, family taken care of, you don't normally go out doing blue-collar crimes. Most of the folks committing blue-collar crimes, at least in America, they're 30 years of age or under. Many of them barely have a job, barely have any income, barely have a pot to piss out of or a window to throw it out of. Reducing poverty will make a big difference in that. It does make a huge difference when you reduce poverty. Keep in mind what the hell they're committing the crime for. They're doing it to get money. If they have a decent income, there's going to be a lot less crime needing to commit the crime. You got what you're trying to get. It won't end crime. Yeah, there's just some fuckers out there that are greedy as hell, but if you got a decent income and a decent job, you're not going to be out there purse snatching. Yeah, if you come across a bank scam or something where you can make a bunch of money, maybe that, but you're not going to be out there taking purses if you take a woman's purse, chances are you're going to score less than $200. You're not going to do that if you got a decent job, a decent income, and shit to lose. Look at in the comments, abolish minimum wage so poor men can work. Christian uploads. You believe that if you abolish minimum wage, poor men can work. There may be some validity to that. That if you abolish minimum wage, poor people can work. But the problem is they're not going to stop being poor. If you abolish minimum wage, so people are getting paid $4 or $5 an hour, yeah, employers can hire a lot more people. But all of them people are still living in poverty. Going to work doesn't mean you're not going to live in poverty. It just means you got a damn job, which is why I'm not a big fan of politicians bragging about how many jobs they create. You hear that from Obama, Trump, Biden, you name it. Yeah, but how much does a damn job pay? Having a job don't mean shit on its own. How much does it pay? So, yeah, abolishing the minimum wage so poor men can work. Yeah, but that doesn't mean you're going to stop them from being poor. Going back to the box, tap the screen, get the likes up to about 40,000. We can make that happen. 40,000. The moderate Democrat Good to see you here. Well-known creator. Good afternoon. I'm doing good.
Man? I heard you guys talking about unfortunately there was the school shooting today. And in my town here in Ohio, our schools, I think there needs to be some educating going on about these teachers. Like we have that going on where we have the teachers, only teachers who volunteer to do that. They have to go to train. Mm-hmm. They have to first of all, they have to volunteer to do it. No one's walking up to teachers and
you're talking about armed teachers. You're talking about carrying firearms.
What they do, we have them in safes they have to walk up and put their fingerprint safe. They go into that. Let's say that there is a response to a shooting. They see it going on. That person who went through the training, they go to the site in the school where the firearm is located. They go get that. Then they go to the active shooter.
So they do have. So unlike what my other caller Julio was saying in the beginning, saying it was a stretch, he stated that the armed teachers, their job would be to cower and lock the classroom, and if the guy came in there, they would take him on. You're saying they actually have to go find the assailant and take them on.
There's a squad. There's an active squad that goes and confronts it. They're trained to do that. They actually do training to do that here in Ohio. They have to go through so many training hours to do that. So like they would lock the school down, right? And then that teacher or that official in there, they go get the firearm. They're locking that classroom down, but then that person goes after the shooter.
Like a teacher SWAT team of sorts.
Well, it's just not teachers. It's we also here in Ohio we have officers too. We have policemen in there walking around.
Is this at every school?
Yeah, in my town. There's certain counties that do this. You have to. I think there's maybe like 8 or 9 of them in Ohio that does it. Mine's one. I personally, I want our kids to come home safe, and I'm willing to do anything because I don't want our schools to look like morgues.
Well, when you say you're willing to do anything, would you be willing to maybe consider the fact that guns are too readily available?
Well, we definitely got to keep guns out of people who are mentally unstable. That's for sure. But I mean, we have to live in reality. Is like you're never going to get rid of them. You have a constitutional right to have them. What we have to do is keep them out of the hands of people who do bad stuff with them. The gun itself is not going to do anything wrong.
Yeah, but based on that argument, you're giving the argument that guns don't kill people. People using guns irresponsibly kill people.
Yes, it is. That's the fact. The gun will never go by itself and go do something.
Then why would you ban drugs? A bag of smack will never jump off the table and inject itself. People using drugs kill people. I think
it's a bad comparison.
How?
I think because I mean, like, what do you want to do?
No, but here's my point. Here's my point.
You want to regulate drugs?
No, here's my point.
We can't regulate.
Hold on, hang on. Here's the point I'm making. You say guns don't kill people. People using guns irresponsibly. My point is drugs don't kill people either. People using drugs irresponsibly kills people.
We can't regulate guns. We can't regulate.
Why can't you?
Hold on, we can't regulate the dope, can we?
You can the same laws you have
to regulate cocaine and stuff like that. We can't do that. Come on.
The same laws you have on drugs. Why can't they be on guns?
What do you mean? Well, I mean, I don't have no problem doing gun laws where we restrict people from having certain firearms. What are you talking about?
Okay, when you say certain firearms.
Red flag laws. I mean, I support red flag laws. I support thorough background checks, all that. But really, the comparison between the guns and drugs is a stretch, really, because you can regulate the firearms. I'm with you there, but you can't really. How are you going to regulate?
No, here's what I'm saying. You say it's a stretch, but this is the point I'm making. Everyone says you can't, you can't legislate morality, or you can't fix stupid. So why try to pass laws against guns when at the end of the day, a person, you gotta be responsible for your own actions. I'm saying based on that mindset, why are there laws against drug use?
Well, because people are reckless with the gun, or not guns, but you got me confused with the drugs and the guns. With the drugs thing,
Yeah, it's confusing because they're similar. They're so damn similar. It's confusing.
The difference between the thing is that there's not a constitutional right to drugs. There's a constitutional right to firearms.
See, maybe
right?
that's the problem.
Those are fundamental. No, it's not a problem. It's the right thing to do. We have a constitutional right to bear arms to protect ourselves. We have to keep these out of the hands of people that do bad stuff. But I have no problem passing laws to limit people, or if you got to have a special permit and all that stuff. You know, I understand these things. Well, getting back to the point about the teachers, there's a lot of misinformation with this.
Hold on, before you get to the teachers, when I said maybe that's the problem, the point I'm making is when they passed the Second Amendment, the world was a totally different place than it is now. We're trying to force an amendment from the 1700s in a 2024 society. Society has changed. I mean, maybe there's some parts of it, such as having a firearm helps you prevent tyranny. Back when everybody carried a musket loader and the citizens all rode on horsebacks and they were equal, you could fight tyranny back in 1776. Nowadays, you can't do a damn thing. Nothing you have in your house is going to stop the government.
I mean, do you own firearm?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, I don't particularly walk around on my hip all the time. I'm not a gun enthusiast. But we always say this, we always be knocking the good guys all the time. Well, there's a story a few years ago in Indiana. His name was Dickens. And he went to Indianapolis into a mall. Well, he was in there with his girlfriend. They walk in there and they're shopping. And this fella before him had went into the men's bathroom and assembled the AR. That guy walks out, assembled his AR. And he immediately walks out and unalives 3 people eating at the food station there. Mr. Dickens, who was in the mall with his firearm on his hip, he's in a building that prevents him from having that, but he still had it on his hip. You know what he did? From a distance away, he took down the shooter and saved potentially 100 people or more. And you know what? That good guy with the gun saved people. And you know what? And he was responsible. And I'll give the guy the key to the city.
But here's the point I'm making. Because, like I said, I carry as well. I'm not totally against guns. When I brought up the tyranny argument, the reason I have an issue with the tyranny argument, because that argument is I should be able to have what the government has. Because firearms, a well-regulated militia gives me the ability to stop tyranny. So when you say people should have the same as the government, this is when the outrageous amount of armaments.
I don't want people to have missile launchers, man. I'm not trying to say that. No.
I mean, hell, you don't have to get all the way to missile. What about an armed drone? What about a grenade?
There's limitations. I'm Tim. I'm not some radical on this. I understand what there is, but I do believe that people ought to be able to protect themselves and have firearms. I mean, I'm not trying to give the citizens.
What about a 50 cal? What about a 50 cal? Anybody protecting themselves with that?
I think if you have let's say like a 50 cal, let's say you have to have a special permit for that.
Okay.
I would think that you a special permit, you have to go through special clearance for that. You know, there's common sense approaches to this stuff.
But we're not using common sense. That's the point I'm making.
I'm with you, but also we don't need to be so scared where we hide from this. Like you can have a firearm and we can have common sense gun ownership in this country. You know what I mean? The thing is with this is in this country, we protect our money. We protect our money more and better than we protect our children. Okay? I don't want to see our schools looking like morgues. I want our children to be able to go to school.
Here's the point.
That means, but also we don't even invest in metal detectors, Tim. What's the point of having a guy in there with a gun or a teacher with a firearm or potential to go get one when a student can walk right in, right past everybody with the firearm in the backpack, no one's checking. The kid can sit down there, stand up, right middle class, start popping people.
Bro,
we spend more money in NASA looking at stars billions of miles away when we could take a fraction of that and make sure every single.
Well, I can give you the obvious answer to that. anything that rarely happens is not going to get a lot of money in the budget. Fact is, we're talking about another mass casualty, but the fact is 99.9% of American schools will never have this stuff. So it's going to be hard to get dedicated revenue from.
Well, I agree with you. And this is the problem, is that we need to dedicate this money. We need to value our children. And that's why also what I would say to Republicans is don't be afraid of thorough background checks. Don't be afraid of red flag laws. Don't be afraid of these things, because everything needs to be on the table. That includes restricting firearms to some people, spending the money to protect our children. Because when you send your kid, I have a third grader. I want my baby girl to come home to me every day. So I want them to have everything that at their disposal to protect those children. I don't want a teacher just to sit there and have to hold my child in the last minutes. I want them to give them every opportunity in that situation to be successful. And we can't be afraid of the moment. We have to stand tall, and we realize that
here's what I think we need to, based on your statement, and your statement is very popular with my MAGA audience on YouTube right now, which is fine. You know, a lot of folks are pro Second Amendment. I'm pro Second Amendment just to a certain level, but I will say this: we probably need to look at school shootings, folks getting taken out in churches and supermarkets. It's just going to be part of the course. Just like if you give everybody a car, accidents are kind of just, it's going to happen. We need to just accept that as long as people have Second Amendment rights, some kids are not going to come home from schools. That's just going to be part of it.
Well, I don't think that's all due respect. I'm not going to accept that. We shouldn't accept it. Oh, some kids aren't. No, our kids should come home every day. And that means putting the money and the resources there, not accepting that some kid somewhere is going to die today. No.
I think
Americans, we cannot be complacent to that, Tim. We have to do stuff that is uncomfortable. If that means
you can't. Wait, hold on. There's no way in hell you're going to do things that are uncomfortable in the same crowd as saying shall not be infringed. Everything about infringement is uncomfortable to that crowd. As long as you have that moniker, the Second Amendment shall not be infringed, essentially you're not going to be able to do a damn thing.
It also says well regulated too, the part that they don't like to say.
Well,
so
yeah, you're right. They don't like to say that.
I understand, man. I have these same conversations like you do with them. But my thing is with it is I'm realistic with it, man. It's like we have become numb to this, man, in this country. You know, you would think after what was it, Parkland, when all the little ones got taken out, man, that was terrible, man. Terrible.
Let me ask you this.
It was terrible.
Let me ask you, because you're saying we need to do something while you also support the Second Amendment. Let's say you got an Iraq war, Afghanistan war veteran that is back in America. Now he's armed.
Stand corrected.
Huh?
It was Sandy Hook. I stand corrected.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Let's say you got a war veteran that is back at home in America, did his time honorably, now is back home in America, and goes to his doctor and admits to his doctor, I'm having dreams of Fallujah, dreams of Kabul. I wake up screaming at night, and I'm in mental misery. Should that soldier lose his right to have a firearm?
I think that I support I think that person should lose them for a little bit until they become stable. And I think that I don't believe that my Second Amendment right is over. It is more important than the security of the community. You understand?
I was going to say, I see on YouTube, Dasha said he can't say yes. The fact that you were hesitant, and by the way, why you were hesitant that?
I'm trying to say the right word.
The right word is no. Right word is no. He shouldn't have his gun.
I'm trying to find the right what. Well, I'm not like everybody else. I'm trying to answer the way I want to answer it, not the way you want me to answer it.
Okay, go ahead. Give me your way.
We got to remove them, right? But we got to do it legally, and we got to give that man or that woman an opportunity to get right in the head, right? And if that, first of all, they went and served, let's get them help. Yes, let's take the firearm. Let's get them help so they can retain that, right? Let's not be harsh to them. Let's tell them, hey, this is for the community. This is for you. You're clearly not right. And family, if the person has family, they should be speaking up first of all. They should be calling and, hey, this person has firearms, get the law involved. Let's take it. Let's get this person some help. If you just give a guy a second to answer, I can answer it.
Okay. This is a decent answer, which leads me to another question to you. If the family, because if we know that if you're going through some type of PTSD or mental illness, and you tell your doctor, it could lead to you losing your firearms. A lot of folks that are going through struggles are not going to tell the physician because they know I might lose my gun rights. So you mentioned a family. So if a family member says, oh, my husband or my cousin, I think they're going loony bin, should the government be able to act on their Second Amendment rights?
100%. I support red flag laws. 100%. If I'm going to say my right to a firearm shouldn't supersede the safety of the community. If I'm on Facebook and I'm talking about being mad at the mayor because the mayor done did something to me and didn't give me a permit that I wanted, whatever, the city didn't give it to me, and I'm talking about doing something stupid, and everybody knows that Rudy owns firearms, and I'm talking shit, I should get a visit from my local PD, and if I'm showing aggressiveness, they should go to the court. The court shows that I am a threat. I need some help. Take my firearms. Let me get the help. I got to settle my ass down and act right. Because, look, if you have firearms and you're fixing to go do something, I would rather them go take your firearms, make you upset for a little bit, but the community's safe.
What about he said, she said?
You made the decision to go out and be aggressive. You making other gun owners look bad, bro. You got to take care of yourself.
What about
you can't go out there promoting shit?
And I think most would agree if you're on the internet and leaving this huge data trip. But what about he said, she said? Because Jay Roger on YouTube says,
that's why
hold on, hang on. He says, as long as gun laws are the way they are, we're unfortunately going to sadly have kids gunned down in schools. I do tend to agree with that. But what if it's your ex-wife? What if you're not online making any threats or anything? Your ex-wife goes to the court and says,
100%. It needs to go to a judge. A judge would have to review it and look at it, and that it would have to be legitimate. They would go to take it to a judge. A judge will look at it and say, well, clearly, hey, he's not making no threats. He's not doing anything. This is his ex-wife. Show the proof. You have to show proof. But you have to show proof, legitimate proof that this person is a threat to the community.
Terry L7 in the comments makes a really good point. He says bureaucracies are slow. So if your wife goes to the court and says you're making threats or you're in danger tonight, you say they got to go to the judge. How long will that be? You get to keep that firearm for?
I think you would have to put up some type of program. You'd have to put it together. Where it involves the judges and police in a faster way. Or let's say the police come and take it, right? Then they would refer it to a judge, and a judge would look at it. You can have the police take it. In that meantime, then it would go to the judge, and the judge would review it and go, well, there's nothing here. He didn't do anything, or she didn't do anything, and give the guns back.
Okay, and I see in the comments when you said he has to go to a judge, AC said, which judge? A MAGA judge? I mean, but but everything.
I'm just saying the judge.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think you and I disagree as much as we may sound like we do, but at the end of the day, everything you're talking about is infringement, which is why the MAGA side of my audience is like, hell no to most of the things you're saying.
I understand, but the thing is, you both sides are left and right on this. We're going to have to do stuff that you don't like. The left doesn't like the thought of having bulletproof windows and security because they say they don't want our schools to look like prisons. And I tell them I don't want my school to look like a morgue. So you know what? I want my kid to come home safe. And if you don't want the school to look secure, you can keep your kid home. But the rest of us want our babies to come home safe. And then I would tell the right, you know what? Hey, you're going to have to do a thorough background check. You're going to have to get used to red flag laws. We're going to have to put money in these programs. We're going to have to do this shit. We're tired.
But where does it end? But where does it end? We're talking about kids. We're talking about in school. Does somebody armed go with them on field trips at recess? Do you need an armed guy at the supermarket?
The thing is, if you think about it, at our school, like when the kids are out playing, we have officers walking around out there, man. You got to think about it. This world's a nasty place.
It ain't the world, it's us, moderate. We are so focused on defending the Second Amendment right and our right to protect ourselves that we're leaving everybody exposed. The only reason this stuff is happening is because we're putting the right to bear arms above everything else. That's what it's not. This is not happening anywhere else on the globe.
But Tim, the reality of the situation is the reason is that there's a constitutional right to bear arms.
Right.
Okay? And we have to deal with that. Look, man, in the future, I believe that places like Walmart, Kroger's, and movie places, and especially malls, it's ridiculous that you go to the mall and you see a guy walking around with a flashlight on his hip. Bro, you need a 45 on your hip. Jeez. What are you doing?
And that shows you why most democracies, where people actually have a right to vote, where they can actually vote how things go in their country, very few democracies are voting for Second Amendment rights. Most first world countries, I've had callers come on the show. One guy from Australia talked about how they lost their guns in '96 after a mass casualty event. And he says every time we have a politician that talks about bringing back gun rights, that we quickly shoot them down by pointing out examples of the United States and how kids go to school and die. He said, we don't want to live like that.
Is it Australia that don't have the guns over there?
Yeah, they lost them. I lived there. I used to live there for 5 years. I lived there for 5 years. They had lost the gun right before I came there. They had lost gun rights.
So the person told me that they have an extreme high rate of knifing incidents.
No, they don't.
There.
And I used to work in the hip hop clubs where that would be more likely to happen. There's not a lot of knife. Listen, I lived in Brisbane, which is the third largest city in Australia, 1 million plus people. I also was in Sydney frequently. And I'll tell you this, as big as those towns were, there's nowhere in America that is that size where I would feel as safe as I did in those towns. I mean, in America, even if you live in a town that has 250,000 people, there's a much greater chance of being murdered than it is anywhere in that country.
You guys did bring up the officers that was standing outside. When these people take the jobs, they need to know, hey, you're willing to give up your life for those kids in there or whatever, whoever you're protecting. And legitimately, they need to be charged with some type of crime when you don't go in there and defend them.
You want a teacher to have all that responsibility?
No, I'm not just talking about. I'm talking about the officers.
Oh, the cops.
We're talking about the officers and people that don't go in and do their job. You know what I mean?
Didn't the Supreme Court rule, though, that cops don't have an actual duty to protect you?
Well, the Supreme Court's kind of jacked, man. You know, they be saying some stupid shit lately. So, I'm saying like this, you got a job, your job is hired to go in and take out the bad guy. And if you're recorded not doing that, you need to be prosecuted for not doing that. You had a job to do.
Fair enough.
You're paid to do that job. You get your ass in there and go handle your business.
All right, moderate. Good having you on here. I'm going to come visit you as well. Good talk. Appreciate it.
All right, man. You have a good one.
Take care. Now, I think his Second Amendment stance may be a little bit to the right of mine. I carry, but he's probably a little bit more closer to the shall not be. Now, he's not shall not be infringed, but he's probably a little bit to the right of me. Fair enough. But that's how we that's how we work with free speech. You don't have to agree with the host on the damn thing. RGB, thank you for the super chat, says, technically, somebody said, oh God, not well. World War III, I'll leave that alone. Somebody else said he's ridiculous, referring to my last caller. RGB says, technically, if Trump gets rid of the Department of Education, most Americans will homeschool their kids. I don't know Trump. Just like with repeal and replace Obamacare and drain the swamp, ending the Ukraine-Russian war in 24 hours, some of the things Trump promised are not as likely to happen. If you get rid of the Department of Education while trying to also have the largest deportation in history, I think you'll really hurt the country. You're gonna do things that actually reduce the amount of educated Americans, because I really believe getting rid of the Department of Education would be a real pain towards the lower level communities, blacks, Hispanics, and getting rid of the Department of Education, I think, would really make a lot less educated Americans. And then you're getting rid of immigrants as well, who normally replace the lack of educated people we have in this country. I don't see him being able to successfully do both of those things. One of those would have to take a back seat. I think getting rid of the Department of Education is something that would not likely happen under Trump, but Trump is known for pulling shit out of his hat and making shit happen that everybody says he can never do. So I'm going to leave it at that. Will G, rest in peace, Fat Man Scoop. Real quick, that's totally off the topic, but I didn't know who he was until I started hearing his, his musical tributes. I mean, everybody's heard him. Put your hands up and all. Yeah, he was a club hype man. Yeah, rest in peace to that guy. Who, by the way, his last words before he died is, "Y'all came to party. Put your hands up," and he dropped dead. Great guy. A lot of musical tributes that if you're in the hip hop scene, you've absolutely heard. Top Dog 4X. Appreciate the super chat, says, "I'm in most cases, the shooters weren't diagnosed with mental illness. So it's more than mental illness." That's a great point. And I'll take it from two angles. And I see Jay Rogers says Trump loves the poorly educated. Sounds sarcastic, but there is an actual quote of him saying it. He did say, "I love the poorly educated." But in regards to your statement, in most cases, the shooters were not diagnosed with mental illness. That's true. In fact, they're not even criminals. We talk about getting guns out of the hands of criminals and things like that. When it comes to these mass casualty events at schools, churches, supermarkets, and places like that, that person, in most cases, was a legal, law-abiding gun owner right up to the moment they pulled the trigger. If you go back 10 seconds before they pulled that trigger, and you run a background check on them and all of that, they're 100% legal. Most of those folks are like that. Whether we're talking about the Ubalde guy, you're talking about, most of them, the guy at Mandalay Bay, 100% legal until they actually started pulling the trigger. In fact, the guy at Mandalay Bay, which represents the largest mass casualty event in U.S. history, took a bunch of firearms to his room in the Mandalay Bay, set him up, and got prepared to shoot across the street at a concert. If you went back a couple seconds before he pulled the trigger, cops come busting in his room. By the state of Nevada laws, I don't know if he's committing a single crime. You came in his Mandalay Bay room. He got AR-15s laid all over the damn bed, tripod set up and every damn thing. I don't even know if he broke the law at that point. That's how free our gun laws are. Until they actually start pulling the trigger and hitting people, they're not committing any crime at all. You catch a regular American citizen with a whole bunch of ARs in a hotel room, in most states, that's legal, with the exception of a few liberal states. But in most states, certainly in the red states, that's 100% legal. So yeah, most of these folks didn't commit a crime until they started taking people out. So diagnosing them for mental illness, I don't even know if that would solve it. I do believe it would help in some of these cases, but a lot of folks doing this shit, road rage and things like that, it's regular law-abiding citizens. You know, he seemed like a nice guy. He kept to himself. You know, he'd come out every day and check his mail and go back. I just seen him going to work back and forth. These people ain't gonna show up on nobody's radar. I don't think it would stop it to any significant degree. But maybe I'm wrong. Look at it again. He was quiet. That's another one. Yeah, he was so quiet. He never bothered nobody. I don't know what made him take out 8 people. He seemed pretty cool. You know, I would go to his house every now and then and ask him if everything's okay. We talk. I never would imagine he'd do something like this. Looking in the comments, wrong if you plan to unalive folks. If you plan to unalive someone, it's a crime. But you're not going to be able to prove that. Like I mentioned, Travis, the guy in Mandalay Bay, responsible for the largest mass casualty event in U.S. history so far. If they had went into his hotel room, saw all of the ARs and unlimited ammo laying on the bed, and saw the firearms on tripods, any decent lawyer is going to get him off if you want to try to charge him where you plan to commit a murder. Prove it. I never said it. Prove it. I'm going to the range next week, and I wanted to make sure the tripods held the weapons properly. Prove it. There's no crime being committed until he pulls the trigger. I don't think I agree with that totally. Breaking news: criminals don't follow the law, says a flock of morons. Well, you need to understand that a lot of these mass casualty events are not committed by criminals. They're not a criminal until people start dropping. They're not criminals. Going back to the box, keeping the program going with Bamboo Brews. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Top Dog. Top Dog, good afternoon.
What's going on, Tim?
Not much at all. What am I getting wrong here? Should we just leave the Second Amendment alone and we'll be fine?
What do you mean? What part?
The Second Amendment. Does any changes need to be made at all?
Nah, I mean, I think at this point it's too many of them out there, too many out in the world right now, Tim. So even if we try to cut back, even if they stop making them, it's just too many out. We produce too many of them.
You know, there are times. Let's take the Toyota Camry, one of the cars that was sold a lot when it first came out. A lot of them are no longer in the street. Why do we believe that? Because there's a lot of something, it can never be reduced or removed. There are so many countries out there that limited gun rights, and now all of a sudden nobody's getting shot. Why were they able to do it and we can't?
Because America we love our pew-pews, Tim.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, we love them. We was raised, you know, our American culture. That's like right next to the American flag is one of those. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna say it on, you know.
But you know, Top Dog, I used to love the hell out of my baby mama. She ain't around no more though. I was able to get rid of her. Why do we believe that there's no way possible you can do this? You couldn't even at least put a dent in it? You couldn't limit it?
I mean, yeah, we could do buybacks and things like that, but I mean, once again, we love them in America. You know, I'm out in Oklahoma. We go through. They have a gun show, Tim, every other month in Oklahoma. You know what I mean? So they're everywhere, and people love them. So we'll never be able to get rid of them. I mean, it just won't happen. We love them.
You sound like Leslie Nielsen on the Naked Gun. Or somebody talking like, I get that we love them, but no limitations. You can't put a dent in it. In other words,
no. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can do something, but not. I'll say put it like this: I can't even see them getting rid of 25% of them in the United States. I can't even see 25% being gone.
Okay, now we got the Second Amendment, but the Second Amendment doesn't protect the sale of firearms. What if you outlawed gun shows and even gun shops became very difficult to open one? Would that make any difference at all?
No, it's just going to make the black market rise. Make the black market is everybody going to go to the black market?
Gunpowder and everything.
Everything.
And you think most gun owners, just because they love firearms, would be willing to commit felonies to keep them?
Well, they'll keep them inside their house, Tim. So if it's inside my house, nobody won't know what they have.
But think about it this way: most crimes ain't committed in people's houses. So if you keep them inside your house, we may be better off.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah,
that's absolutely true. You know, but those things right there, Tim, it's just part of America's, part of our fabric. You know, and you know they're not going anywhere. You know, like I said on YouTube, that super chat. You know, people. The mental health. Well, all those people we talk about, maybe after the situation, Tim, now they get diagnosed with something. You know what I mean? Prior to, a lot of them are just normal people.
But I think we made a little progress when you admitted if all of a sudden they started keeping them in their homes. That's because most of the crime with firearms is happening on the street. So that's at least about a way if you started trying to do anything limiting firearms. Barack Obama's a perfect example. When he got elected, everybody thought that he was going to take away guns. What happened? The price of ARs tripled when he got in office. If all of a sudden people thought or saw some type of laws being passed to address guns in any way, and the price of a gun skyrocketed, maybe that might make it a little bit harder for criminals to get, because all of a sudden, if it's worth a bunch of money, you're not leaving it in your car or in your garage and shit like that. And I think pawn shops, because folks say, well, buybacks will never work. I think pawn shops are a perfect example to show what will happen if you offer money for guns. People don't mind selling guns. If they triple in price, I think the only issue is what you said in the beginning. People making their own. Because if you get rid of the gun stores, or limit the gun stores, limit the gun shows, it's harder to get a new one. So folks, as you say, loving guns, start making their own. But then it goes to that original question. Are people does the love of guns permeate America so much that people are willing to commit a felony just so they can have a gun?
I think majority would. You know, they would keep their guns, Tim. You know.
So let me ask you: do you carry?
I have one. I'm like what you said. I keep mine in the house. Okay. I don't really carry. You know, I don't keep it on my hip. Let me say that.
If you knew it was a felony, would you still keep it in your house? If you knew that was a felony?
Yes, just to protect my family, Tim. I would take that chance as the head of the household of my family. I would take that chance.
Here's another question I often wonder also, because folks say if you get rid of guns, people will always be able to find something else as opposed to a gun. Then why don't people fight? Because I just asked you a question. Would you keep your gun if you knew it was a felony? Not once did you say, well, no, I would just find something else to protect myself. No, you commit the felony and keep the gun. So why don't we keep believing that people are going to find something else?
I mean, no, they won't find nothing else because you know if you use that for protection, it's the fastest neutralizer.
Yeah, and that's why people use guns, is because it is more effective at killing.
Way more effective. Yeah, way more effective. Right there to it, you know. You know. So that's why. So would I get rid of it out of my household? Nah, I wouldn't, Tim. No. But would I ride around with it in my car, taking a chance of getting pulled over? It was illegal. No.
Okay. Well, I think that's serious progress, though. If you got them out for people walking around in public, that would end road rage incidents. I mean, things like, I think that would, because we talk about the bad guys with guns, but good guys with guns do a lot of shit too. It ain't like all of the gun crimes in this country are being committed with bad guys. A lot of the good guys with guns are probably not good guys. I mentioned George Zimmerman in Kyle Rittenhouse. A good guy with a gun shouldn't do what they did. So I think some of the good guys with guns are really not good guys.
Well, just let me tap off what Denkow said. You know, when somebody's walking around with one of those things on their hip, Tim, it gives you a little bit of power.
Right.
It makes you a little bit, and not everyone, but it makes certain people a little bit more aggressive, where certain situations they would have walked away, or, you know, they would have had an argument, said they weren't, and, you know, we both kept moving. But by the fact we got this on our hip, you know, it makes people that it gives them a little bit more
irresponsible. More, it sounds like it leads them to do things that are a little bit more aggressive or immature.
For sure.
Then that's not a good guy.
No, it's not. But like I said, America got to work on it, Tim. But it's so many of them out here. I don't see a way that we can. The only way. Let me say this, Tim. The only way I can see them honestly cutting back. Honestly, is the buyback program. You know, something like that where you put money. Americans, all of us, we love money. So we're not going. You know, if you make those AR-15 say, I mean, we give you $1,000 a piece for them right now. $1,000 a piece for them. People that didn't want to give them up, need a little money. They're gonna give them up. So you have to definitely do it. It definitely will have to be a financial way to get them off the streets. It wouldn't be voluntary. It wouldn't be, you know, knocking down doors. It have to be like a money tied to it.
And I agree with that. I will speak on that. I got moving on, but I agree with you 100% that buybacks would be part of it. Appreciate you coming through, man.
Thank you, sir.
Anytime, Dr. And I will say, because I see folks in the comments, well, I'm not selling my gun. Yeah, I wouldn't, if I was going to attack the Second Amendment or try to limit it in any way, I wouldn't take away people's right to bear arms. I would grandfather them in. If you own a firearm, you can keep your firearm. However, what I would do is target the production of additional firearms. We got 450 million guns floating around. You can't take away people's Second Amendment rights, but you can limit adding more guns to the pile of 450. If you made it more challenging to get new firearms, while, as my last caller stated, you got a lucrative buyback program, you would bring the number down. You're never going to get to zero. However, here's a couple things. First of all, if you know your gun is worth triple the money, everybody that has a firearm is not sitting well financially. Some folks may have 5 or 6 firearms and they're living check to check. If all of a sudden their firearms are worth 3, 4, 5 times the price, okay, well, I'm going to maintain my right to protect my family. But maybe we'll sell this one so we can pay rent this week. Also, a lot of times it's the husband, the father, the man of the house that has a bunch of firearms. When grandpa passes away, grandma may not need 6 guns. So all of our guns are going to outlive us. Every one of us that carries a firearm, your gun is going to outlive you. So that's another way. This isn't going to happen overnight. This is not an overnight thing. 450 million, as my last caller suggested, it wouldn't happen overnight. But you could make a dent. Criminals alone are going to represent thousands of firearms being taken off the street every day. If those firearms are not placed back into circulation, and it is more challenging to buy new firearms, talking about gun shops and gun shows all being greatly limited, and pawn shops buying a bunch of them off the street, they're worth triple the value, so some folks are actually willing to sell them. It's going to make a dent. It's not. I tend to believe, my last caller saying 25%, I think you could accomplish that. And I will say this, if you're doing anything with firearms, like folks thought during the Obama era, where AR-15s tripled in price, you're going to have a whole lot less petty thugs on the street using firearms, to rob somebody of 50 bucks. If the gun you have is worth 3, 4, 5 times its original price, you're not out doing $50 capers with it. You had to have a decent amount of income just to get the damn gun. You're not gonna have 12, 13-year-olds doing petty stick-ups with firearms that are worth $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. That's just not gonna happen. There are other uses. Why don't we just sell a damn gun? I do believe you could limit it. At the end of the day, like I said, you're not gonna get rid of all of them, but I do believe you could limit the pile if you wanted to. It's happened on every other country. I don't know why America. Now, I get my last call and said, well, I love my guns. Yeah, but like I said, if you have money problems, you pass away, does your wife love guns as much as you do? If she's having money problems, your gun is going to outlive you. So you think the NRA will just let you do that, says JoJo. No, the NRA will not. I do believe the NRA is part of the problem. The NRA is the entity that looks at a mass casualty event at a school and they sit there and have a conversation on how can we protect guns. That's what we usually do after a mass casualty event, is we come up with laws and rules to make sure the Second Amendment shall not be infringed upon. I had a caller, a while, moderate Democrat, stated, we do more to protect our money than our kids. We do more to protect our gun rights than our children's lives too. We continue passing laws to make gun ownership more and more protected in America. We don't pass laws to make children more and more protected. To some degree, we leave them more and more exposed. Going back to the box, tap the screen, get the likes up to about 100 on YouTube. I think we can make that happen. We got enough folks here. In the comments, John Doe says the problem is not gun kits. I don't think a lot of folks are being wasted by somebody who had a gun kit. I don't believe that at all. Let's try it again. Going to Bamboo Brews. Good afternoon or welcome to the program, Bamboo. It don't help when politicians are on TV waving their assault rifles. Well, like my last caller said, we have a huge love of firearms. If you go on TV and you wave a firearm around and you talk about defending the Second Amendment, that's worth millions of votes. If you go on TV and you talk about taking away firearms and protecting kids, you can find yourself losing votes. There are more folks in this country that want to protect gun rights than children. It's just the way there's more folks when it comes to getting shot. There are more folks that would rather protect the right to shoot than to protect from getting shot. I see the name I didn't see the rest of his name. Good afternoon.
Greetings, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. What is that name? The J what?
The J-E's.
Okay.
E-A-S-E.
All right. Now, I'm obviously talking about a controversial subject. What am I getting wrong?
What you're getting wrong is, sadly, I don't think there's anything we can do about this. I don't think so. The love affair that Americans have for their guns is going to be the ultimate demise of what this country is, I believe, in somewhere maybe 50, 60 some years.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. I'll let you continue. I want to, Gen X, I do see you. Hey, Tim, I applauded it. You appealed and won, got my lab access back. Thanks for having me on. To whichever TikTok, well, that something ratted me out. Okay, I can't read all of that, but I do see you, Gen X. Okay, you saying we can't do nothing about this?
No, sir. I think what's going to happen, this country is ultimately going to eat itself alive, and we're just going to have to see what comes out on the other side.
So what we're doing in protecting Second Amendment rights, in your opinion, is actually bad for us.
I think, if anything, I don't think it's necessarily good or bad. I think it's somewhere in the middle.
You used the phrase "eat itself alive." Ain't no middle about that.
Oh, eventually, yeah. And when I say eventually, I don't even think I'm 38. I'm still kind of young. I don't think neither you nor I are going to be around by the time that happens.
Well, it depends. It depends. If we have civil unrest, a civil war, if people talking about, with that many guns in this country, you're gonna have a lot of dead people because everybody will have lethal force. So every conflict is likely to result in somebody dying. And you could live to see
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing about the school shootings itself. This isn't a new phenomenon. I do want people to know that. This goes back even before this country was considered a country. This goes back to 1764.
School
that
shootings?
was the first one.
School shootings?
Yes.
Huh. I don't remember it being as common, though.
That's a great point. So after 1764, the next one didn't happen until the 1800s.
Yeah, exactly.
From the 1800s, it was at least 1 to 2 a year that continued to build up and build up and build up. And here's the thing, not all of them were by students. But before I get to the other side, do you remember the phrase, "I don't like Mondays"?
I do, but I don't remember the story behind it.
Perfect. Most people remember "I don't like Mondays" and they attribute it to Garfield. Because, that was the thing that Garfield said all the time.
Okay.
However, who we have to thank for that was a 16-year-old girl in California in the 70s who, when she lived across the street from the school, from an elementary school, and she decided that she just wanted to open fire on the kids going inside the school.
Damn.
And that's what she wanted to do that morning. So when they finally got her on the phone, they asked her, "Why are you doing this?" She said, "I don't know. I don't like Mondays.
Holy
This
shit.
gets the day going."
Damn. Well, I think that's what's kind of happening now. Is more like this guy today in Atlanta. They said he's 14 years of age. Most likely, his answer is going to be very simple, just like that. What makes a 14-year-old go and take out? I mean, they weren't all bullying him. He got like 4 or 5 people that have already lost their lives. Who knows what that number will rise to? I think it might be a simple answer, just like that.
I wouldn't doubt that at all. Actually, she's still alive today. I don't think she's ever going to get out of prison. But the other thing that you mentioned, and that somebody in the comments mentioned, is not always a criminal, and it's not always mental health.
No, it's not.
Because there have been at least 4 documented school shootings by teachers. One of the more heinous ones was in the 90s.
The teacher?
Yes. It happened in Long Island.
I haven't heard that.
Let me see if I can remember. Let me see if I can remember his name.
That's interesting news because we're talking about arming teachers. That's very interesting. Keep going.
So you said earlier that sometimes when they catch up to some of the people who are around the shooter, they always say, oh, you know, he was such a quiet kid. You know, he never bothered anybody, et cetera, et cetera. The thing that they said about this teacher, they say he was always seen reading Catcher in the Rye. He was a well-spoken, sort of quiet guy. And then he got into an altercation with one of the students. He got fired.
Oh.
He came back. He shot 2 of the students and held the other 18 for 9 hours.
You know, that's basically going postal. Remember the old term? We don't use going postal anymore because it's happening. It used to only happen at the post office. Now it will be going church, going supermarket, going. I mean, it's happening everywhere. But that really is going back to your job site and doing it. I mean, that's a case of going postal.
That is. There are 2 others, and see, it's not, this one happened to involve students. There was another one in 2001 that involved a student. As a matter of fact, the one in 2001, the guy was a former teacher's aide, and when he came back, he had one of the students to help him. The other 2 were 2 teachers who opened fire on their colleagues while they were like going in like regular meetings and stuff.
He was a teacher's aide and he enlisted one of the students to help him in the mayhem.
It happened in 2001.
Damn.
Let's see. His name was Mitch Johnson. It happened in Jonesboro, Arkansas, at a middle school.
I'm familiar with Jonesboro. The crazy thing is, we're talking about arming teachers. Do you think that's a good idea?
Exactly. No, I do not. No, I do not at all.
Wow.
No, because we like to believe that idea of the good guy, and that that the good guy is gonna prevail in these situations. How many more of these situations do we need to see where the good guy just don't show up? Is the good guy late for work? Did the good guy forget to put his cape on? Does he have his vest on? Is he ready? Is he ready to go in there? Because we've seen the 2 situations where the cop didn't go in there.
Yeah.
We've seen the situations like that. At this point, this is why I say, and as a parent, it hurts me deeply. And matter of fact, I say this before I go. I have a good friend in the UK, and she said she has family over here. She visited. She said she's seen Atlanta. She loved Atlanta. Said she loved the food. She visited New Orleans, some places in NYC. Said she's coming back. She said, I had an amazing time. She said, but I can't imagine settling down in America. And I was like, really? Why? She said, because I'm a parent. And I paused for a minute. I said, excuse me? She said, yes, I have a son. It's like, no, I know you have a son. What do you mean by that? She said, I can imagine waking up in the morning, getting myself ready, getting my son ready, fixing him breakfast, make sure his clothes is all right, make sure he got his hygiene in check, kiss him on his little forehead, send him off on the bus. I go off to work. 2 to 3 hours into work, I get an alert that there has been a shooting at the school that my kid goes to.
Wow.
She said, even if my kid isn't a victim, it would shake me up so much that day I would leave everything in my house and I would go. Yeah. People in other countries look at America like, why are y'all still doing this?
Well, as my last caller said, we love guns. We're willing to make whatever sacrifice necessary to maintain the ability to own firearms. I don't care how many people die, I'm not giving the Second Amendment up. That's how most Americans feel.
Hey, you know what? I take that back. I have one more thing because I know I wanted to say this because somebody mentioned Switzerland. So many calls earlier.
Before you do, in the comments, MX says that it's these damn white folks. I'm assuming it has nothing to do with skin color, does it?
It doesn't. You know what? Here's the uncomfortable truth is I don't completely disagree with that. But I'm in Alabama, and it happened not too many years ago here in Birmingham. And at a predominantly black school, and the person who had the gun was a black boy.
Yeah.
So it doesn't at this
point.
Well,
you say black folks are fighting for you say black folks are fighting for equality even when it comes to mass shootings.
Yes.
Damn.
Now, when you compile all the data, now you're gonna find one group of people that's gonna outnumber everybody else when it comes to this. That's just the fact on that when it comes to the mass events like that. But the other thing I wanted to say, because somebody mentioned Switzerland all the way back, a few callers back,
right?
And one of the things is, my whole point is, America, we live in an inherently violent society.
Fact.
Inherently violent.
That is a fact.
And when you look at the other countries around the world, America has the highest, well, the lowest, however you're looking at those numbers, recidivism rate. Take places like Denmark and Norway, for example. When you look at their prisons, the prison cells look like tiny apartments. They're comfortable. They have amenities. They have resources where they wake up every day. They go and do things that actually stimulate them. They're not treated like animals, because these other countries focus more on reforming the prisoners so that they can get them out and be productive to that society. One, with the capitalism that we are in America, we don't really care if you get out or not. We just need to get these bills paid. And two, we look at you as an animal once you're found guilty, whether you're actually guilty or not. So there are people in the comments now who are listening to this who are like, well, why do I want a prisoner to be comfortable? And the reason why you're saying that is because you know that you live in an inherently violent society, so you believe that just because that prisoner is a prisoner, then they're a monster. And you believe one day the switch flipped and that monster abilities came out. And if you're going to believe that, then I need you to believe that about everybody around you, because guess what? According to the World the World Health Organization, 1 in 3 women are abused in some shape, form, or fashion around the world. And oftentimes that person who does it is in their own home.
Wow. All right, J.E.'s. Deep stuff, very deep. Today is a depressing day, but I appreciate you coming through, man. Wow. Thank you.
I appreciate your time, man. Have a good one.
You too. And I will add on to what he said. I see folks in the comments, don't commit the crime if don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Fact is, adding on to what he said, America is both money hungry to some degree and vengeful. And I think those are what really hurts the recidivism rate. First of all, we make money off of incarceration. So anything that people profit off of, they're going to want it to continue so they can make a profit. So the idea that a large portion of the penal facilities in this country are privatized, there are actual people who are investing in the stock market, prison stocks, where they're making money off. That should not be fucking allowed. You should not be able to make money off of incarceration. Because guess what? If I'm making money off of incarceration and I benefit from people being incarcerated, then I'm going to lobby to every politician to make sure every crime is punished to the maximum extent of the law. I want all the prisons filled. I don't want anybody getting out and getting their life together. I want everybody in, because you should not be able to profit off of incarceration. And unfortunately in America, that does exist. That's the number one for why people don't get straight. Number two is we are a vengeful society. As he mentioned, my last caller talked about people being, viewed as monsters. That's true. When a person commits a crime in America, we want their prison stay to be as long as possible and to be as rough as imaginable. You've all heard of, well, I hope he has a rough stay in prison. I hope he's in the room with Tyrone. We want bad stuff to happen to you while you're in there. I hope he's busting rocks. I hope they're giving him bread and water like Sheriff Joe Arpaio down in Arizona, making him wear pink underwear and watch the Disney Channel. I want their stay to be horrible. What people don't take into consideration is 86%, I think, if I remember the statistic correct, 86% of people in prison will one day get out. So if you treat them like animals when they were in it, what do you expect to deal with when they get out? You've made it so that they can handle any damn thing now. You've put them through the most what word do I want to look for? The most trial of error situation they can be in. So when they get out, fear of going back is not as great anymore. You've hardened the shit out of them. America's a vengeful society. If you commit a felony, we want you to pay dearly. Not only do we want you to pay dearly when you're inside, even when you get out, we want to make your life miserable. We don't want you to be to rent certain places. We don't want you to be to go certain places. We don't want you to be to do certain things. We don't want you to have certain rights. We want your life to be miserable because you shouldn't have never did the crime. Can't do the crime, don't do the time. Being vengeful and being money hungry is why our society has a very poor recidivism rate. I think they said 50% of let's say immigrants. Wow, 50% of ex-cons are back inside within 1 year. 50% of them. 5 years is like 70 or 80% of them go back because we make it as hard as possible on them. People are making money when they go back, and our thirst for vengeance is being satisfied. We want them in there. So, like he pointed out, Netherlands and some of these other countries that have a very low recidivism rate, the thing they all have in common is they don't treat the people like animals. As he pointed out, they're getting a real education while they're in there. They're getting decent food and shit. They're treating them like the way they're expected to live when they get out. So you got folks in America when they get out and they're like, shit, it was hard for me to even get adjusted to seeing color again because everything's gray and drab. I ate a Big Mac and I started throwing up and shit because the food, I mean, everything is designed to fuck you up. So when they get out, they're fucked up. Anyhow, moving on with the program, and it is big business. It really is. You can't complain about it, but you want to create more laws to make more law-abiding citizens criminals. We're only talking about guns. We're not talking about passing a whole slew of laws. And by the way, you want to talk about passing laws, what do you think the abortion shit y'all going through is going to do? You're going to put a lot of moms in prison. Let me go back to the box before we have a whole different show. People get out and can't get a job because they are felons. That is true. I guess Trump changed all that. Shout out to President Trump because there is, in my opinion, I think that there should be a case for felons of the future to argue that Trump has shown that we are being mistreated. He got 34 of them, and you're treating him like normal. I don't know if it'll work, but people should try it. Does he? You know, if you can be president with a bunch of felonies, why can't I vote? I mean, he's going to be able to run the country. If you can have access, and we're going to tie this to the Second Amendment. If you can have access to the nuclear football, why can't I have a Saturday Night Special on my hip? I mean, he got access to nuclear bombs. I can't have this little 6-shooter right here. I think there are some legitimate points to be made using former President Trump as an example. He's traveling. He's doing all of this stuff with 34 felonies. I passed a couple bad checks. I got 1 felony, and I can't go nowhere, and this dude is hanging out all over the country. Remember, a lot of Trump supporters often state that Trump is the victim of a 2-tier justice system. Sounds like he might be benefiting from a couple of those tiers as well. Because you and I as felons can't get away with all that shit. You would not be able to do half of the things he's able to do if you had a whopping 34 felonies on you. I don't care if they're bullshit felonies. For folks who might suggest what Trump went through as a witch hunt, whatever the case, you know how many people are serving time in prison for witch hunts? Folks die in prison after being charged with witch hunts. Folks get executed based on witch hunts. He ain't the first guy to be the victim of a witch hunt. If it is, he's not the first guy. So, yeah, I think Trump has opened up a lot of potential for fellas to argue. If he can get away with it, has he set some kind of precedent? Certainly if he wins the presidency. If he wins the presidency, yeah, in my opinion, say you can't be a librarian or you can't do this. Look, this man is president with 34 of these bad boys. Why can't I do this or that with only 1? Ivan, thank you for the super chat. So this means there's 50% that Trump's going to do his felony within 1 year in office. Wait a minute, you said, so there's I don't quite get the wording of this. So this means there's a 50% chance that Trump's going to do his felony within his 1 year in office. I don't quite get that. Now, remember, Trump is due to be sentenced on the 18th. there's not I mean, nobody expects Trump to do any real time or any time at all, but it's not a guarantee. Trump makes a lot of enemies. The guy who was due to sentence Trump made a mockery of him too. You never know. He may just say, fuck it. 60 days in, 100 days in. I mean, what does he got to lose? Trump will appeal it and probably win, but he's already made a mockery of the judge. Fuck it. I'm going to give you 60 days. Let you figure it out. He could do that. Will G says, do not put Trump in. Absolute power corrupts. Well, I bring it up on the program all the time, how Trump is promising to get police immunity from prosecution. I do believe that could corrupt the police department, but a lot of folks on the right will tell me you need to stay humble, and if you haven't committed any crime, you don't have anything to worry about. I do believe, because I know myself, I don't have any damn crimes on my rap sheet. If I had immunity, there's a lot of shit I might be willing to do. If I knew I could, no accountability, oh yeah. Going back to the box. Bamboo Brews. Let me try it one more time. I've been trying to bring this guy up. They can kick rocks. Says Mount Paul. Sorry. Please tell Trump that, JoJo. I don't think he would listen. Bamboo. Good evening.
Tim, I finally made it in, brother.
Hey, appreciate you hanging around like Mike Pence. So, what am I getting wrong?
Hey, listen, man. You know, everybody got a menu for how to correct this whole gun thing, man. You know, I always go back to the comedian. I think it was Chris Rock or one of them guys. You know, said make
$500 a bullet.
Yeah, but here's the thing, man. People talk about these buybacks. You know, I'm here in Baltimore, man, and I work with gangs, and I work with the violence reduction program, and I've been at the gun buybacks, man. The guns that they get, 90% of them are guns that don't even work anymore. They're the guns that, like you say, Grandpa left, you know, in the umbrella stand at the front door, and Grandma said, "I'm gonna take this thing down here and get me $50 for it." That
don't apply at the. But keep in mind, the pawn shop is another perfect example of buybacks. You're trading in guns for money at the pawn shop too, and all those guns do work. I mean, if they're taking guns that don't work,
yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. You can't just take any old gun into the pawn shop. You got to have the right papers for it. So for case in point, just talking about how strict they are getting now. Here in Maryland, right now, you can look it up. There are 3 gun shops that have come under federal investigation because legal gun buyers were going in making straw purchases. One guy bought 30 Glock 1917s or whatever it was, and they said that the gun shop should have known that this guy was making straw purchases.
Yeah.
And all of those guns turned up on murder scenes in Baltimore.
Wow. I personally have a real world example of that myself. My grandfather was a World War II vet. He was a pistol instructor, at least that's what he told me. And he had, because I lived with him in his last days, and he had firearms all around the house. And when he passed away, my grandmother did not have any desire to have firearms at all. I think she kept one until she died. My cousin, who is a habitual felon and spent most of his time in prison, he came to visit my grandma and took all those guns. So they're all on the street. And I do believe a lot of folks are like that. People who have multiple guns, which is why I said your gun is going to outlive you. Can you be certain that once you perish, that gun is not going to end up on the street in the hands of criminals?
That's right. And, you know, Tim, here's the one thing, you know, that I've been listening to people, you know, talk about. You know, I was in the United States Army. I was an infantry soldier.
Appreciate your service.
And thank you, sir. And I know that when you have that weapon in your hand and there's a paper target on one end, it's easy to pull the trigger. But when you put a human being on the other end, and you got to second guess whether this person means you any harm or not, or what is it going to do to you mentally, that plays a big part in it. So when you start talking about teachers, you know, being armed in the classroom, you know, you look at the police officer in your city, in Chicago, walking down the alley, something falls in the alley, startles him, and he unalives.
Yeah, I seen that. It was an acorn hitting the top of the car or something.
So,
yeah,
you know, so all of those things happening, you know, the possibility of those things happening, all point to one thing: teachers don't need to be armed. And then here's another point: in 30 states within the United States, children as young as 14 can possess firearms legally in 30 states in the United States.
A pistol?
So it doesn't specify pistol. I believe it's only for rifles, for hunting type things like that.
I mean, it's still lethal. It's still a lethal device.
Yeah. Here's the thing: when that parent says, "Okay, I want my son or my daughter," because they have a right, a constitutional right, because the Second Amendment doesn't talk about age.
Yeah.
It just says,
that's
as an
crazy.
American citizen. So when you're born here, you become an American citizen. So now your child has the right, if you're in one of those 30 states, to bring that weapon to school.
No, you got to be getting. Listen, I'm going to admit. I'm going to admit I'm ignorant. Hold on, hang on. I'm going to admit I'm ignorant on this subject, but surely we don't have any Americans. Even the hardcore shall not be infringed upon America. We don't have anybody suggesting that their child should be able to go to school armed to protect themselves, do we?
Tim, this is America, land of the free.
No.
Listen, I can't pinpoint a specific case. I'm being the devil's advocate here right now, because whatever, Murphy's Law, whatever can happen will happen. And so if teachers are armed, now I got a child who's a responsible operator of a firearm. They've been trained. They know how to handle the weapons. I've been training them all their lives. Why can't my child, this is not me personally, I'm just speaking hypothetically.
Yeah.
Why can't my child, be able to defend themselves? I can't depend on that teacher to defend my child, but I know my son knows hand-to-hand combat. I know he knows small arms combat because I taught him.
God. As bad as what you're saying sounds, and even as you're admitting you're speculating, but there are folks who have fought to have the right to carry guns in bars and in courtrooms. So there are some wild people out there like that. As you pointed out, listen, if the teacher can carry a gun and the teacher might have PTSD or mental illness, why can't my child have a firearm just in case the teacher gets out of hand to defend himself? I can see some folks making that crazy ass argument. I actually can see that happening.
Right, and it's just a matter of time, As long as the window of opportunity is open, the opportunity will present itself at some point. So I say, let's nip it in the bud now. And to one of the callers, you talked earlier about how could we, end this whole gun thing. I say change all the calibers of all the bullets being made, and don't allow anybody else to have access to those calibers. And then once those bullets are gone, those guns will become obsolete. But here's the thing: take all the guns, give everybody a shotgun. Everybody house have a shotgun.
What are you, Joe Biden? You sound like Joe Biden now.
Well, look, if you come out on your porch with a gun to fight me, I'm gonna come out with the same kind of gun, a shotgun. And everybody in the neighborhood got a shotgun.
Well, the problem is there's too many educated gun owners who know how to make shit. I mean, because if you take a shotgun, I believe the buckshots or whatever, the balls or whatever shoots out, they're not very accurate. They have a limited range. But if you put one big ass projectile in there that rotates and spins and is aerodynamic, you suddenly have a better weapon than your neighbor do, even though your guns look the same. But what you're shooting out has a greater distance and more accuracy than what your neighbor has. So there's too many gun-savvy people out there, I think.
Well, here's the one truism about life: there are winners and losers.
I gotta go. Appreciate it, Bamboo. Good talk.
Thank you, brother.
Oh, my Lord. Man. Fair enough. Thank you. And what do they call it? Thinning of the herd? And there's a lot of folks who do believe that. Wasn't that what the anti-vax crowd was about? What they call it, herd immunity or something like that? Hey, look, just give them all guns and let the audience sort it out. I mean, there are people who do believe that. 5 years mandatory to own one. Even I can't get with that, Twain, because if a woman, let's say a woman comes in and shows that her husband is truly stalking her, she done moved to California after divorcing her husband in St. Louis, and can show he don't move to that area and been asking around town about her. 5 years to get a gun? I'm not a fan of that one. I do believe there should be proper background checks, but 5 years is just, that's like immigration. They're just making you wait for the sake of making your ass wait. Run a proper background check. I'm with that. I'm with some limitations that I know a lot of my beloved MAGA Saturday Hour don't agree with. Like, I don't believe you should be able to take a gun into every structure in society. A lot of folks believe you should. Like I said, bars and places where alcohol is served and shit like that. I don't believe any shop owner. This is just like with the pandemic, where folks did not want to wear a mask or had no vaccination, wanted shop owners to be forced to let them in and take away all the shop owners' rights. If the medical community, now we can say Dr. Fauci, maybe you think he was completely wrong. Fine. We know some of the stipulations on how to respond to the pandemic were wrong. But during that time, if the medical professionals are telling you don't do this or don't do that, and you own a business, why should you be forced to allow people in who are totally ignoring what the medical professionals are saying, while they're also saying that person that's ignoring that shit could come in here and kill everybody? The right was saying they should be able to walk into any store, any shop, and the shop owner should have no right to stop them. Same thing with the Second Amendment. If you own a business, I think you should have the right to, no shoes, no shirt, no service. If you got a gun, you can't come in. I think they should have the right to do that. If you're caught in there with a firearm, they can get you for trespassing or something like that. You have a right to go wherever you want to do business. If you don't like the law they have at Kroger's or at Walgreens, then go to CVS. Go to Ralph's. You don't have to go in this grocery store. Simple as that. If you believe in states' rights, how about the right of the business owner? He don't want you in here. Okay? Don't go. If you don't feel like you can protect yourself in that, then don't go in that business. I do believe they should have their right. Looking in the gun comments. God. Looking in the comments, Jim Politics says, I am not a gun owner, and I deserve the right to feel safe too. And Billy Bob does not give me that. Well, you already know the response or the pushback to you, Jim, in politics, and that is people can find another way to stab your ass, blow you up with a bomb, or run you over with a car when you step outside. That's what you hear. But as I always point out, even though people can find other ways to take lives, when you look at the level of deaths in America due to firearms, there's nowhere on earth where they actually are finding another way that makes them competitive to what we're doing here. Yeah, you can find another way to take a life. But fact is, using a firearm grants you the best chance at success. There's whole crimes. Before I go back to the box, and by the way, tap the screen. We should have been around 100,000, but tap the screen. Give me up to at least about 90. I think we can make that happen. Smash that like button on YouTube. Uncensored programming. If you enjoyed civilized dialogue from all sides of the aisle without anybody being blocked, banned, or censored, you are in the right place. Follow the program on TikTok and subscription on YouTube, if you will. We are here Monday through Friday. Follow the program, subscribe on YouTube. I think that there should just simply be some logic to it. But people use firearms at the end of the day because it does make killing easier. There are whole crimes that would not happen if you didn't have a firearm. I always use the example. Let's say some guy, gangbanger, thug, whatever you want to call him, sees a bunch of his rivals on the playground and he wants to take them out. He got an AR-15 in the backseat of his car. Snap your fingers, the AR-15 disappears. He can't use a gun, but he still wants to take out those folks. What else can he use to get the same success as he would have gotten with that AR-15? Now, you can try to run them over. You're not going to get all of them with a damn car. They're going to dodge you and get away from you. They're going to scatter. That's not going to. With an AR, you're guaranteed a high level of success. Drive-bys and a whole bunch of other crimes. Without a firearm, those crimes would be very difficult to commit. Are we expecting, like today's crime was committed in Atlanta by a 14-year-old. You think he got bomb making skills? Think he could make bombs? Maybe he could have used a pointed instrument and got one or two people. Maybe. And I see in the comments everybody's talking about bombs. You realize how many actual educated, skilled bomb makers in Iraq, in Afghanistan blew themselves up? That shit ain't easy. You're not gonna have a bunch of kids making bombs. Where on earth does that happen? Where on earth, even in areas where there's a lot of first world countries where people cannot own firearms. How many people are getting blown up by kids compared to how many children in America are shooting people? It's not even in the same universe. Even in the third world countries, like the Middle East and places like that, how many teenagers are making bombs? It's just not happening. Compared to the amount of teens in this country using a firearm to take a life, it's not even in the same universe. Going back in the first world countries, it's practically non-existent. Going back to the box, Jade. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program, Jade. Dueling was safe by bystanders back in the day. What is that, when you walk, take paces, and turn around and shoot each other? What is dueling? Jade, good afternoon.
Hey there, how are you?
I'm doing good. Obviously a controversial topic. A lot of folks think I'm full of shit. What am I getting wrong?
I don't think you're necessarily getting anything wrong because you're trying to entertain a whole lot of different ideas, and that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? But the problem is, see, I got a 14-year-old, okay? I'm legally required to send them into harm's way, into these schools that you can literally just walk into.
Yeah.
As a person, you can just literally open the door, walk in, and that's.
Oh, wait, they don't have any, because a lot of schools nowadays, the door is locked. You got to get buzzed in. You're saying that it's wide open?
I'm saying that they usually have a security guard there in the front area there when you walk through the door, but you can literally just open both doors, walk right in, and then there's a receptionist and a security guard, and sometimes that security guard's not there. This is the second state I've lived in that's like that.
Are you in a rural area or the city?
No, I am in Colorado Springs.
I thought most schools now were at least locked down when school was in session.
No, and that's what kills me, right? So we have these kids who have now been traumatized over and over and over again for such a long time, where we're having lockdown drills. We're teaching them that, you don't get to be a kid anymore. You have to grow up so fast because you have to realize all these people, somebody might just come in and do all this to you while you're in school where you should be safe, okay? But we're not keeping them safe because not even the schools are that worried about it. You get what I'm saying? It's like, it boggles my mind, right? So I don't understand why I am legally required to send my kid into harm's way.
Well, you could homeschool them though, but then that affects your own career and your own ability to earn.
Right, exactly. So my point is like, okay, we have to be able to solve this problem without making schools feel like prisons. You get what I'm saying?
I don't think you can do that while the Second Amendment is operating in a shall not be infringed state. But before you continue, I wanted to address a comment. Kenny in the comments says, guns are not the problem, fatherless behavior is. You realize most of these mass shooters in school, these people got dads. A lot of the time it's their damn dad's gun they're using. So I don't think putting a father at home is going to stop this. They're not taking their mom's gun in a lot of these cases.
That's a projection.
Yeah.
That's an easy answer for somebody who's ignorant about the subject.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Okay, we have the technology right now. You were mentioning the big cows. I don't want to get you off of here, but the government has ways of watching for certain shopping lists. That's why we don't have more of certain kinds of big problems in schools, other than pew-pews, right? The reason why is because our government already knows that if you're buying this, this, and this, we need to look out. We need to take some consideration on that. But here's the thing. What we could do, and it's just an idea. First off, you're not going to arm teachers. The MAGA crowd already doesn't trust teachers to teach. Okay?
Well, wait, hold on, though. I did have a caller who lives in Ohio, which is a red state, who claims it's already happening in his area.
Right, but what I'm saying is, on a mass scale, what you hear about most often right? Is that all these woke teachers are pushing their agenda onto these kids, but you're going to arm them?
That's a good point.
That doesn't make sense. You want these teachers who don't make enough as it is to do their job, to be not only the nursery care, you want them to be the counselor, you want them to be the side parent, you want them to now be the human shield, and you want them to be armed to take out kids that are violent in the school. This doesn't make sense. Yeah. And not that I'm expecting it to. It's a MAGA talking point, right? But I'm just saying.
That ain't MAGA. That's the Republicans. Even the Mitt Romney types are okay with a lot of that stuff. That ain't just MAGA. That's traditional Republicans too.
It's silly. It's absolutely silly. You know what? You don't pay these people enough to even be a human shield, let alone make them shoot at kids.
Wow.
It's stupid. It's just okay. So there's a way to do this, though, right? Okay. You talked about a buyback program, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So do a buyback program. Change all of the gun industrial complex. Make them make new guns. You can make them so that they have smart triggers, or they have to have a fingerprint to unlock.
What do you do with all the 450 million of them that's already in existence that are not built that way?
Eventually, the ammo's going to run out. Now, you're going to say, well, they can make their own ammo, right? Okay, but you add that to that shopping list that the government watches. Do you see what I'm saying?
You got to have politicians that are willing. What would happen? Let's say we get a politician in there who agreed totally with what you're saying, and he tries to do everything you're suggesting. The next guy would come in there like Trump or come from the right and get rid of all of that.
Maybe so, but here's the thing. It's a way to keep the Second Amendment. It's a way to make sure that we don't have all of this ammo and these high caliber guns out there, right? It's a way to use the technology that we've got, because we've got it. We make gun safes all the time that you have to open with fingerprints, right? So instead of putting that on a safe, put it on the gun itself.
Wow. Yeah, when they say the Second Amendment shall not be infringed upon, they don't even want laws that require education, require safes, as you're talking about, locks. When they say shall not be infringed, they mean I don't want any gun law at all. Even the common sense ones is infringement.
Here's the problem, okay? I believe, and I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I believe that the Constitution is a living document that is meant to change with the times, okay? And until we can all agree that it has changed through the times to fit the issues of the time, and it has to do that now. This is another instance where it has to do that. We don't have well-regulated militias. We have guys in khaki shorts walking through Nashville. Okay, that's not a well-regulated anything. That's a bunch of bozos who would have skid marks if anybody approached them. Okay, you get what I'm saying, though. Yeah. It doesn't make sense to me. It's like you're talking about a well-regulated militia. Well, where are they? We have a military. We had a well-regulated militia when we didn't have a military. So it has to be changed. Has to fit the times. We have the technology, and all we need is the progress to get there. We need people in our government that are actually going to do the will of the people. We need term limits on the people that are running this country, all of them. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot.
I disagree with the term limits, and I'll tell you why I disagree with term limits. I don't believe I need the feds to tell me who I can and can't vote for. But at the end of the day, Mitt Romney, or not Mitt Romney, but let's say Mitch McConnell of Kentucky. There's no liberals forcing Mitch McConnell to keep winning. The Republicans keep voting for the guy over and over again, just like the Democrats kept voting for Nancy Pelosi over and over again. Instead of term limits, just quit voting for the person. You don't need the feds to come in and tell you who not to vote for.
The way you fix that is, what's the problem? Why do MAGA Republicans keep getting voted in over and over again, most of the time uncontested, right? Because liberals don't do their job. We get so sidetracked by everything that we're into, right? We don't go vote. This past
you can't blame MAGA for that. If you're not doing your civic duty.
I'm blaming everybody because we've all lost our sight of our civic duties. And we have such a short attention span that we forget, okay, well, no, everybody that's voting for Kamala Harris right now, that's great, okay, cool, whatever. But everybody else is talking about, I don't want to vote for her, I want to vote for a third-party system. Cool. You vote for that third party, you're going to lose, right? Because you can't have your attention span on it from now to the next election cycle, working up from the grassroots to get somebody in there that you actually can vouch for, that you can vet, that you can
it's too late. You're either going to get Kamala or Trump. Trying to bring somebody else in there is a waste of time.
Cycle. Everybody wants to jump on a whim. They want to jump on a bandwagon and say, oh, but the third party has a chance of winning. No, they don't. You have to work on that.
No.
You have to really put a lot of effort into that. That has to be determination from one election cycle to the next.
I don't even think I kind of disagree with your determination. The problem is money in politics. You're never going to, as a third party candidate, it's going to be almost impossible to compete with the money that's in the Democratic and Republican Party. Which is why Trump had to run as a Republican when he's not one, and Bernie Sanders had to run as a Democrat when he's not one of them. It's because they knew I can't compete with the amount of money needed against these juggernauts. So,
okay, but at the same time, when you think about like people like AOC, right? She ran on grassroots. She knocked on doors. She went neighborhood to neighborhood. She did her work, her footwork. She did the time to get where she is. Okay.
Yeah, but she's a congresswoman with a small area. She's not gonna knock on every door in America. That ain't gonna work.
But she has to have enough staying power, and Democrats or whoever's voting for that third party has to have enough of an attention span in a microwave sort of generation where everything's instant to stick with it long enough to build that. The reason why the Democrats and the Republicans are as big as they are is because that's all there's been for a long time. There's been talking points on those two sides, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, what is her name? Jill Stein or whatever? Like, she's probably the one that's got the most chance in a later sort of way to maybe get up there somehow. But there's not enough people on her side, and she's doing all the work she can.
Yeah, you gotta get money out of it, because like I pointed out, Bernie Sanders had a hell of a lot more support than AOC, and he didn't make it. I mean, you gotta get, as long as money is in there, huh?
That was the DNC, and we both know that.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The DNC ain't gonna put Bernie Sanders to the top and have him destroy the party like what Trump has done to the Republican Party, where all of the traditional members are unemployed. I mean, the Bushes, the Reagans, the McCains, the Romneys, everybody hates them now. If Bernie Sanders had did to the Democratic Party what Trump has did to the Republican Party, you probably would have lost half of the Democrats by now too. That's why they stopped him, because they saw the writing on the wall.
So let's put it like this. I think that this country was built on a broken system on the back of people. And I think that in order to fix it, unfortunately, we're probably going to have to break it a lot more. And I don't think people are willing to get to that point, because not enough people don't make decisions when they're comfortable. Does that make sense?
True.
Okay. And until everybody is more uncomfortable, and it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets any better, right? Anybody thinking that this is going to happen right away, whether Trump or Kamala wins, I don't think that's going to happen right now. I think there's going to be some civil unrest. There's going to be some loudmouths, but I don't think it's going to be on any kind of large scale.
What about some bloodshed? You think there's going to be some bloodshed?
I think that you got a lot of keyboard warriors who are saying that they're going to do something. I think that a few of them might be crazy enough to go out and try. But I don't think it's going to be anything that's like a nationwide thing. And I think that if people are talking about like a civil war, we're ways off from that. We're still a ways off.
Well, Trump did get on social media the other day and stated nothing can stop what is coming. And he had in there the acronyms Whiskey Golf, the #1 Whiskey Golf Alpha. So he is indicating by his, I don't know if he's playing games, if he's just doing it, but he is talking that way, saying that something is coming and nothing's going to stop it.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you that once in my studies, and I'm not the smartest person in the room ever, I'm going to tell you right now, but in my studies, when fascism rears its ugly head in any society, it doesn't go away peacefully. Damn. Okay? This is going to be something that we're going to have to fight over and over and over again. And whether Republicans or MAGA are willing to admit it or not, we're going to have to talk. We're going to have to converse. We're going to have to get together on this, because unless we want to lose our country, that's what's coming if we don't remember this from day to day. Hey, you know what? I need to talk to people. I need to get to know my neighbors. I need to make friends with people that are reaching across the aisle to me too. Local community get-togethers, because when you're talking online, everybody's up in their air, right? They got that keyboard warrior mentality, the anonymity. But if I'm talking to somebody out in the street and they're a MAGA Republican, I can talk to that person because they can't hide. Right? They're going to have a different level of personality with me out in the street than they are going to have with me over any kind of social media. And this social media, although it's been good for getting word out in certain situations, it's also terrible for communities. Yeah. Because we don't talk to anybody.
I have heard that. Jade, I do got to move it on, but social media certainly does have its pros and cons. Is that the first time talking?
It's the first time on here. I've been on like 3 other lives. I'm just getting my feet wet.
All right.
With it.
Appreciate it. Come on back through anytime. Don't be a stranger. All right, moving the program on. Blacks and whites have to unite. Well, man, I don't want to sound like I'm bashing former President Trump, but this ain't gonna happen under Trump. The reaching across the aisle and all of the things what my last guest was saying and some of you folks in the comments, it's not going to happen under Trump because Trump is already, get on the Trump train and get ran over. Trump is not promoting unity. Trump is promoting, I have the right idea and right direction for America. Either get with us or get ran over by us. It's going to have to happen after Trump. I don't know about Kamala Harris yet. She's still a wild card. I'm not going to get up here and say she's done all kinds of great shit or that she's been a complete failure. I don't know. She's a vice president. Vice presidents are not known for a whole lot of accomplishments. To my MAGA side of the audience, who's always at, well, what has Kamala Harris done? Well, hell, what did Mike Pence do? What did Al Gore do? What did Dick Cheney do? They're not known for accomplishing a bunch of shit. She was a senator for 4 years. You don't like how California was ran, I get it, but a senator of a state for only 4 years is not normally walking around wearing a cape. Ted Cruz has been a senator of Texas for a while. Has he done a bunch of great shit? She hasn't been put in a position yet where she's going to have a whole bunch of accomplishments, which is what a lot of her detractors are suggesting. Well, she hasn't done anything. She don't deserve the job. She hasn't been in a position yet to really, so I don't know if she's great or if she's going to suck. And I know the pun that could be involved with using suck and Kamala Harris in the same sentence. Don't go there. Trump is going to put Pelosi in charge of Capitol Police again, says ex-Army Sergeant. I'll tell you one thing, that's humorous, but if it wasn't for January 6th, Trump would probably be far in the lead. Because out of all of the things that are hurting the Trump campaign, whether it's abortion rights, I did a video earlier, and I had things that Trump needs to do to win the debate, to win. You'll see the video. But anyway, one of the things I put in there is the things that are hurting him, and abortion, threat to democracy is pretty damn high up on the list. Get rid of January 6th, and that's gone. What he did on January 6th did not help him out one bit at all. Did not help him out. In fact, not only did it not help him out, it hurt him. It hurt a lot of down ballot candidates in the midterms. And it could possibly hurt folks again in 2024. 2022, the midterms, remember the whole red wave that didn't happen? January 6th was not a good thing for the Trump campaign. It just wasn't. You can talk about people being let in and it was a peaceful protest. I love it. It didn't help. It didn't help. Nobody's voting for Trump because, look, on January 6th, he exercised his First Amendment rights to protest and it was peaceful. Nobody's buying that. The people who are buying that were going to vote for Trump anyway. He lost votes due to January 6th. And not only did January 6th take place, he has spoken favorably of what happened on January 6th ever since it took place. So for MAGA, MAGA often says, listen, it wasn't Trump's fault. It was a bunch of idiots that got out of hand. Maybe the FBI, maybe Ray Epps led the charge. Trump ain't blaming Ray Epps. Trump has said it was a good day. It was a love fest. So I do believe that democracy, which is on the ballot, would not have been there if January 6th didn't happen. And you got everybody from Kellyanne Conway to Karl Rove to Nikki Haley all saying that he needs to stop talking about that shit. Stop talking about how it was a good day, making music with the folks, offering to pardon them. America does not view January 6th as a good day. He needs to stop doing it. It happened. How many folks on my MAGA side of the aisle has either told someone else or even yours truly, stop talking about January 6th, let's move on? Even MAGA wants January 6th to be in the rearview mirror. Yet Trump continues to go to rallies, bringing it up time and time again. I mean, I think I went to a couple of rallies. He didn't do this at the Trump rally I went to, but he would come out on stage And they always say, let's rise for the national anthem. The rallies I went to, we did stand for the national anthem, but they were playing the song by the January 6th choir at his rallies. So he's spoken nothing but favorably of January 6th. So people are scared about that. Don't really care because borders are wide open, says One Cup, Two Bears. Well, the border is a big benefit to Trump. Why not talk about that all the time? Oh, now there's plenty of Americans that want the border secure, certainly if you're living in Chicago or some of the areas where they're overran with immigrants. But I will tell you this, other Americans place a threat to democracy above border security. Depends on where you live at in the country. January 6th shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be in the conversation. He needs to leave that alone, but by now it's probably too late. A lot of innocent that are locked up without due process, says the truth sayer. Maybe, but that's where you have your day in court. At the end of the day, because you're talking about the January 6 folks are locked up without due process. Maybe, I can't speak on it, but I would tell you this. I don't favor when Trump gets this hierarchy treatment. The witch hunt, for instance. You know how many people that shit happened to? You know how many Americans are locked up without due process? Why is it special in this case? There are Americans who spent their whole damn life in prison for bullshit, for witch hunts, didn't have due process. Get out of prison and they barely get a few bucks to survive. It happens. That is our damn system. And the right don't tend to normally say nothing about it. All of a sudden it happens to Trump or Trump supporter and it's suddenly important now. I'm with you if you're right, if they're there without due process, but that's not something new. Alter ego, yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for the hat and mustache. How many folks have the Innocence Project gotten released from prison that didn't belong there, shouldn't have been there, over sentence? That shit happens all the damn time. That ain't happening just to Trump. But he still shouldn't be speaking favorably of it. And as I stated earlier in the broadcast, Trump was on ABC the other day, and they had a clip of him saying he did lose the 2020 election. He said he lost by a whisker, if I'm correct, which means then January 6th was completely unnecessary because that was about stopping the steal. If you're now admitting you lost, then that whole event was based on nothing. It was based on you thinking that you won. He's admitting that he lost. I don't know if I don't think the people of January 6th have any type of legal recourse with them because they voluntarily went out there. But they're all waving stop the steal signs and shit like that, suggesting that Biden stole the election, calling for the death of Mike Pence for not stopping the transfer. And now here it is 3 years later, Trump is saying, well, I actually did lose by a whisker. I don't know where that goes. Obviously, he's not going to concede to President Biden. And because him suggesting he won the election and was cheated out of it, that mindset has been set in so much. I don't even know if you can convince MAGA now that you actually lost. I got people telling me on the program, no, he didn't lose. He's just saying this because the deep state got to him or because he knows it's hurting his campaign. So now they don't even, this is how the pandemic worked. Once he finally started promoting the vaccine, he had lost MAGA. He can't even promote Operation Warp Speed now without getting booed by MAGA. You don't said something so much on this side that when you finally come correct or tell folks, you can't even get them to believe it now. I don't think MAGA will ever believe he lost the election. Just like he's on video saying, okay, listen, Trump, or better yet, Obama was born in America, period. Let's get back to making America great. That's an actual quote. Most MAGA don't believe Obama was born in America. You say something long enough, it's hard to get the people to switch with you. He's good at convincing folks, but yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, looking in the comments, it's almost 100,000. Tap the screen on TikTok. I haven't heard him speak favorably of something that wasn't even his doing. I don't quite get that one. Kamala's like the border, legs wide open. Hoes for Harris. We voting for Trump, baby, says Paul. He said, and it's in caps, Kamala's like the border. Her legs are wide open. Hoes for Harris. 100% we voting for Trump, baby. You know, the video I made, I talked about how Trump can win the debate and possibly get reelected. I titled it Strategies, Attacks, and Counterattacks. The strategy he needs to use, ways to attack Kamala, and ways that he needs to have counterattacks. So they're going to come at him with abortion and all. He needs to be able to counterattack that. Everybody gets to criticize. If you think I'm saying something that's full of shit in the video, feel free to state it. But one of the things I said in that, in regards to strategy, old dog, new tricks, if he goes out there, hoes for Harris, talking about who she fucked, talking about she's not black, talking about she's using a southern accent and who she slept with, that stuff is a loser. It sounds great at a Trump rally. That ain't gonna work in terms of the debate or to get votes. Trump leads Harris in regards to who's the best for the economy, the border, global issues. Why not talk about the damn policies that people favor you for? Why are you going to, I mean, because the host for Harris sound like a joke on YouTube, but he actually is saying shit like that. He actually is talking about who she slept with and shit. Why not speak in favor of the issues that people want to hear about where they favor you? Teaching an old dog new tricks. Get away from the name calling and the insults. That shit worked in 2015 and 2016. It's like 9-10 years later. I used the example in my video for folks who are old. And remember the Karate Kid where he does the crane to win the competition? He used that crane in Karate Kid Part 2 and it didn't fucking work. At some point, your opponent can predict what you're doing if you keep doing the same shit. How many folks are already predicting that if Trump loses, he's going to say the election is stolen? That he's not going to concede that Kamala Harris. How many folks are already saying that? Folks already know you're going to use the crane. They know what you're going to do. Old dog, new tricks. He needs to learn some new fucking moves. He's leading in certain areas. The name calling ain't working. People expect that. That's why Kamala Harris is fighting to leave the fucking mics on. Because they want him to do what they have seen him do all the time. They expect him to do that shit. Kellyanne Conway, Karl Rove, and Nikki Haley got it right. You need to quit rehashing the past. Change your fucking strategy. Use what works for you, what people favor. And that what works at a MAGA rally is not going to work at the debate. And for you folks that regularly attend MAGA rallies, favor Trump, if you think so, be prepared on election day to say they stole it again. It is your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. I will see you folks tomorrow as usual. Subscribe to the program on YouTube and feel free to smash that like button. Follow the program on, if I can get it right, having a Biden moment, TikTok. See you tomorrow. Thank you as well on YouTube as always. I do got some obligations, so I got it cut live early. I'll see you guys tomorrow. See you in the comments. Hickey says MAGA, Vicky A says MAGA with the flags. Shout out.